musical club.
Isn't that cute? Hey, Johnny, what are you rebelling against?
What do you got?
Yeah, seriously.
What do you got?
What do you got?
Hey, sliding in right. Well, not really on time.
No, we did good.
What time is it?
We did all the.
We did good.
We did good. We did all the
We
stuff.
did good.
Mr. Woods.
We did good.
We did all the stuff.
Ah,
We know that everything is working. Nothing is unmuted. We
yeah.
got stuff set up.
Yeah, we got the peanut gallery already chiming in.
So sorry to disappoint all of our peeps out there for having our shit together. I know it's out of character and well, you know, I mean, there's no place to go but up, right? And sometimes up means
Unless you're in the upside down. No.
I don't know
Get
what the
loose.
hell that means. I
Ah.
don't know what the hell that means. What are we drinking?
Let's see. I have what do we have? Willet rye? Just a little smidge out there in the other room.
You axing me?
That was amazing.
I don't know what you're drinking. Is that what you're drinking?
That's not what I have here.
That's
on
not what you-
deck. On deck. This is the Lefroy.
Oh, that's the
10-year-old.
Lefroy. Oh! I thought you were
The-
rolling with the Willets tonight.
You know what? Erica said she's going to get another bottle of the Willet because it's so good.
We'll roll
But
the Willets.
I know you guys like the Willet and you don't really like the Lefroy. I love the Lefroy, so I said, you know what? I'll drink that all up for you.
All right.
So I'm drinking Lefroy right now.
All
Even though Isla Scotch to me is like a cooler weather thing, and we're definitely leaving cooler weather times here in Los
Well, that
Angeles.
bottle is low enough that I could sneak it in your car when you leave, and so then you'd be trolling for cops on the way home.
I like to drink it here when I come
Oh.
visit you.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good. It's good.
Okay.
The weather's definitely changing here, isn't it?
Wow. Is it? Is
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
I hate to make John Gormaz feel bad because it's 40 degrees and raining in where are you?
Yeah, where?
You're in Maryland or outside of Washington D.C. or something like that.
Oh, actually.
So yeah, I feel you. Well, I mean, let's see.
I like the cooler weather.
The oranges are looking good on the trees out in the yard. The tangerines are looking good. The grass is growing back.
We actually got precip this year.
The roots in the ground are growing, and how I know that is they're penetrating into the sewer system and backing up
not
our
that
sewer
true.
system. So we've had to have it cleaned out twice, and now we have to have the whole line relined or whatever it is that they do.
Transmogrified.
Yeah, exactly. But that's okay. That's okay. That's the least of my worries. It's not like some of my friends I've heard of where it just collapsed and they had to
Oh man.
dig up the whole.
I had a
yard.
funny thing when we lived in South Pass. When we moved into that house, it had been vacant for 6-7 months.
Really?
And so, that's kind of the death knell when the root system's growing into because they get a hold in there and it's a problem. So, day 2 moving in there, of course, everything backs up. Start calling out plumbing companies to come check stuff out. And, one of the big name companies comes out in their super slick van and they run their camera down. And they're like, oh, yeah, this is going to be $3,000 for starters. May run between $8,000 to $15,000. May need to go out all the way in the middle of the street. That's the city's property. That's going to be a really big problem.
Because
but we can start.
A different guy has to do that part. They have to have a special license.
Oh yeah.
To do that part. So
Yeah.
we'll take you up to the point, and then you got to
We'll
hire another
destroy
guy
all
with
your
a
shit.
special license to
Yeah.
go the extra 3 feet to where all the real bodies are buried.
And they're like, we'll start digging today. I'm like, what? Huh? Like, we will dig the shit out of your front yard. Just tear it all up today and
Yeah.
get started. I'm like,
Yeah, we
Okay, hold
will rock you.
holy, yeah. And had 2 other companies come out, same story, and then finally got this guy to come out. And actually we were renting. That's the other good part of the story. And the people who own the house, they're from China, and they found some guy who spoke the dialect that they knew. I didn't. I didn't.
They had
I
a guy.
couldn't do it.
They had a guy.
So they had this guy come out,
Yeah.
and I'm just like,
Somebody's
face palming.
always got a guy.
Because here's the thing. 3 giant vans had come out with all of their awesome gear and cameras and stuff, and they said, this is going to be what it is. And I'm like, here comes Grandpa with basically a glorified toilet auger, and he shows up, and I'm like, oh, God. Like, we're just wasting our time here. He goes in, starts working with the auger, and he goes after this line for like 45 minutes, and just, he's sweating bullets. And then frees up the line, and I watched the transaction with the owners, and they're like, $75. That was it. 45 minutes, $75 versus, we'll start today for $3,000.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing about what are you trying to do and how long are you trying to kick the can down the road. A thing like that is, there's routing, there's rooting it, where the rooter goes through a bundle of roots, but it doesn't remove the roots. It just pokes a hole in the roots. So once they start growing and expanding again, it closes up again. Then you get the guys like this guy that's like, okay, we want to get between 1 and 2 more years out of this before we really we want to kick the can down the road a year or 2. So you're going to find the guy that's going to have the right tool to go in and really chop all the roots.
He just elbow greased it.
Yeah.
Unreal, man.
But we've been living on borrowed time for a number of years on that one, and we knew that it had to be done. So now we're gonna are
you paying the piper?
We're gonna pull the big trigger, but it's gonna be like I never want to hear about it again after that.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, I have tried High West Rye, and I actually wasn't impressed. I've had 2 different sort of whiskeys. They also do like a bourbon scotch mix, and they both had the same thing where, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but both of them felt like the middle was hollow in both expressions. It's like the middle of everything was just kind of, it didn't have as much flavor as the top notes, or I guess the base notes. So I wasn't really into it. No shade if you like it, but it's not for me. What are you holding there?
Well, I have this bottle of Sicilian red wine called Sicilia, and the style of wine is an Incanto, which is a deep red wine. It's almost like it's almost like a I don't know, it's just a very full-bodied, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not like a Pinot. It's darker and heavier than that. It's not a Cabernet.
Oh, okay.
Not the Cabernet vibe. It's the, starts with an N. God damn it.
Yeah, I don't know.
What's the,
I don't know wines, guys.
Yeah.
I do not know
What
wines.
is the, anyway, it's literally a bottle of chocolate. It has this really strong chocolate character to it.
Merlot? Chianti?
No.
I'm just reading off what
No.
our friends are saying.
No.
Yeah, Mark, I get that, and that's why we bought that bottle of it was the Campfire. It just didn't deliver, man.
Zinfandel.
Zinfandel.
It's closer to a Zinfandel. It's kind of like in between a Zinfandel and a Cab. It's really full-bodied and chewy and dark, really dark color, and it's like got a lot of alcohol in it, and it just, you can't see through it. I mean, it's like murky. But we went to
What
this.
do the legs look like down the sides? Is it super oily? What's the viscosity like?
Yeah, it hangs in there.
Oh yeah, it does. Look at that.
Yeah.
Hot dog.
So we stumbled across this Italian place in Pasadena that's like a sort of a traditional
The Olive
old
Garden?
school No, not the album. Place. And the name of it escapes me right at the moment, but we all went there after we went to Joe's studio.
Oh, yeah.
That place.
Over on off a lake.
Yeah. And first time I went there, give me a bottle of blah, 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 blah. And he brought this stuff over, and it was mind-blowingly good. So after we did the Joe thing at his studio, which was about a quarter of a mile down the road from this restaurant, we said, oh, we know this place. You must know it because you're right here. And he's like, had never heard of it.
And I lived in that area for a long time.
And you'd never heard of it.
Yeah.
So we went there, and Joe was like, wow. And you were the same thing. Like, this place has been here all this time?
Yeah.
And so we ordered the same wine, and Joe really dug the wine. And then last week, he texted me. He took one of his clients from Europe over there.
Oh, nice.
And he was like, okay, we're going to find out what this place is, how this place really measures
This is the
up
chocolate
now.
wine?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so he took his client there, and he was thinking, okay, this is where we're going to find out if this place really measures up. And this guy goes, this is the best Italian restaurant I've been to in the United States anywhere. It's the most authentic. I don't know what part of Europe he was from, but
it was good. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it was definitely good.
Was good. Well, I don't know. I mean, if you're from Germany.
You know what was funny was it was a little bit of a dinner jacket place, and we just all walked in looking like dirtbag guitar guys.
Yeah, they don't look
That was
down
my
their
favorite
nose at
part.
anybody at that place.
No.
So, so after like a few days ago, Joe came by. He was just in the neighborhood. He just came by, and he puts a bag on the table, and it's got 3 bottles of this stuff in it.
What a dude!
Because he wouldn't let us. He wanted to pay me for working on his amp, and I wouldn't let him. And so he had to do something, I guess he felt, and like the pretzels weren't enough.
He's a super generous
Speaking
guy.
of not knowing
He's
stuff
awesome.
around your neighborhood, I never knew that
yeah.
pretzel place was there. He went to this pretzel place a few blocks away from our factory we never knew existed. And these are like these Philly pretzels that are mind-blowingly good. And if you go in there to get one, you're gonna wait exactly 6 minutes.
That's the prep time?
That's the prep time.
Huh.
When you walk in the door, I want the Philly pretzel. Okay, 6 minutes. In 6 minutes, a fresh, big,
And they give you the
giant
yellow
double
mustard.
Philly pretzel comes fresh, hot out of the oven, and it is mind-blowingly good. And it's kind of like got that stretch like a sourdough. Oh,
Yeah.
fuck, it was great.
I don't know if you heard it because you were working on the amp when Joe was telling me about it, but he was saying when he first went in there, started chatting up the owner, and apparently, if I'm remembering this right, he started off doing the pretzels in his garage, just fucking around.
Well, that makes sense
And
because
neighbors
the inside
were
of the
you need to make me more of these.
Yeah.
And well, maybe we'll go into business. And now, I guess they just got into Dodger Stadium.
That's amazing. What's interesting about that story is it's funny because the inside of the place still looks like it's in somebody's garage.
Oh, really? 'Cause I
only a
haven't
bigger
been in
garage.
there yet.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's real
okay.
industrial looking inside. There's
Oh.
no place. There are no tables and chairs. There's just like a waiting stool. Like, you came here to pick them up and get the hell out of my place.
You got 6 minutes.
Yeah.
You can handle being in this shithole for 6 minutes.
Yeah.
With a slice of heaven.
And it has this sort of industrial vibe. There's machines everywhere.
Yeah.
And but he's really friendly and super talkative and blah 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 blah. Oh, what do you do? Like, oh yeah, there's a lot of guys doing that around this area. Blah 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 blah. And yeah, I'm into machinery myself. Of course, got to be because I'm always fixing all these old machines. And I'm looking back there, and you see these big things with big handles and wheels on them,
That's awesome.
like from the 40s and 50s. And
Oh, that's cool.
but the guy, you think I talk a lot and fast and too much? This guy, I could not get a word in. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. But that was a
We
blast.
should have him on the show. We'll do pretzel time.
We should have him on the show, and then we could go out to dinner and come back, and he
yeah.
will still be motor mouthing away.
Just wind them up, talk about pretzels, and we'll just sit here and eat them.
Yeah,
We won't have
that's
to talk.
actually a really great idea.
I think it is, man. It takes a while to eat one of those pretzels.
So anyway, cheers,
Cheers.
and thank you, Joe, for being Joe.
He's a great dude, man.
This is so good.
Before we start talking more shit, should we answer some questions? Because we got lots of folks
Yeah, we got a lot of cool stuff to talk about today too. So,
Well, you might. I don't. That's okay.
yeah, we do, and you do, and you'll find out. Oh, this is going to be the show where everything sort of started to come really together and link together just in the last day. And Joe and I have not spoken for probably a good solid week, and we just sort of had this overview, this sort of idea of where it was going to go, but we didn't discuss it.
So
And in the last couple of days, it just started going gadunk, 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 and I told him about it, but I didn't tell him too much. But you're going to have a lot to say about this subject.
okay, I'm throwing this up here for Paul because I don't want him to feel ignored. But I think you talked about this maybe even the last show quite a bit. The last couple shows.
Yeah,
Like
but
a
I
lot
might
of
have,
Fane speaker
but I
stuff.
might have been in ramble mode, so I might not have been too terribly articulate.
Do you want to take a shot at
And
it? Or?
and there actually is a good reason, Paul, to highlight this question right now, which is some of the comments from the video that we did, the second half where we talked about Joe's cabinet
Yeah.
and that the speakers didn't fit, and somebody commented that, oh, it's probably got the cast frame Fanes, and that's why the mounting holes are bigger. And
Yeah.
no,
I saw that question.
yeah. So
Totally fair.
here's the deal about that. Fane, the new owners, which have owned it probably for, I think, not more than 10 years, maybe 5.
Well, at this point, it's longer than that.
Yeah.
Because I think it was more like what you're saying
That might
7 years ago, right?
5, maybe 7, yeah. So
Because when did the ether come out?
right, so that's right. So they've owned it since probably about 2005 or so.
Okay. So we're
And
creeping towards 20 now.
And they kind of picked up where the previous owners left off, which was sort of aimlessly. And the owners are the Barnes family. And the Barnes family consists of the senior Arthur Barnes, who was the managing director of the original Fane factory.
Oh, no kidding. Huh.
He started out in the production department and advanced to managing director, which is,
Where did he get the scratch together to buy the whole joint?
I'm getting there.
Oh. Aren't you full of surprises?
So, he worked his way up the ladder to managing director, which is basically the CEO. Okay, so at that period of time, which was the early to mid 70s, Fane was way bigger than Celestion by a significant amount.
I remember you mentioning that.
They were the biggest OEM speaker supplier
in
the UK.
And we're not just talking about guitar products. We're just talking about speakers, period.
Pro Audio, Hi-Fi.
Because when
They
I first
made-
heard of Fane, it was car drivers.
Car audio,
Yeah.
big speakers for
Like PA work and stuff.
They made
Okay.
all kinds of stuff. That's really where the whole cast frame thing came from, was from their hi-fi orientation. Guitar speakers were generally made cheaply and with pressed steel frames to keep costs down.
But that's all part of the sauce.
Yeah, and the cast frames at that time would have required a really expensive mold, a tool to make those molds, to make those speakers. The reason for having a cast frame is because they're very rigid and they're sonically inert. They tend to not resonate.
But that sort of dulls things down a little bit, right? Keeps things from like...
It works the same way a cabinet works. A hi-fi cabinet, a pro audio and hi-fi cabinet, is usually made of medium or high density fiberboard, which is basically sawdust, compressed sawdust. And the idea is that the cabinet can't introduce any resonances.
That's more what I mean.
right,
You're not going to have like wild
right.
artifacts rattling
The box
around the
is
structure.
supposed to be acoustically invisible.
Yes, that
And
makes sense.
by extension, the speaker frame also is supposed to, the only thing that's supposed to introduce anything to the audio experience is the cone.
Right.
And of course the
Magnet
cone,
construction.
the cone and the voice coil and all that, they have mechanical properties that have to be designed so that they don't introduce distortions. And by distortions, we don't mean a thing that you can hear that goes. By distortion, we mean
But
any
it's-
deviation from the original signal coming in.
But a ceramic magnet's going to have different properties than an alnico magnet, right?
That's right. And basically, a ceramic magnet was just a cheap way to make a magnet. Before they had ceramic magnets, there was alnico, which was really expensive, and you only needed a little bit of it because it was very efficient material as
Okay.
far as creating a magnetic field.
All right.
And what you did with a ceramic magnet was not as good of a magnet structure material, but very, very cheap to make. So they'd make a big solid tube, not a tube, a big solid round slug of this ceramic magnet material and slice it
Like a
into
sausage.
pancakes.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
And the reason it's so much bigger than an alnico is because they need more of that material to create the same magnetic field that an alnico makes. Well, an alnico is a very small device, and the magnetic field that it creates is all focused around the voice coil gap very closely. So it's very efficient that way. With a ceramic magnet, it's much wider, and so the magnetic field that it creates is more spread out. So you have to have more of it to get enough of the magnetic field focused around the voice coil for it to work as well as an alnico. And then all the rest of it that's also creating a magnetic field, that's wasted field.
Oh.
Now, what JBL did in the 70s was they didn't want to use the ceramic material because it was creating this big waste field. Instead, they wanted to use a bigger or longer or more intense version of alnico. There's just like in pickups, alnicos 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have different intensities, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So they wanted to have a more intense magnetic field around the voice coil. But with an alnico magnet, the bigger you make the magnet, the more it costs. So what they did was they made a magnetic field focusing device on the back of the speaker.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that.
And that was that big iron pot on the
Yeah.
back of the speaker that makes it weigh like crazy.
Yeah.
The speaker itself, without that on it, doesn't weigh anything because it's an aluminum frame.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But it's got this big giant iron hat on the back of it.
Mhm.
And the shape of it, its purpose is to take the alnico magnetic field and focus it around the side, around the back and sides of that dish. And then it's sitting on a steel plate, which then takes the magnetic field and focuses it back into the voice coil. So everybody thought, oh man, JBL, big, heavy-duty, high-powered speaker. Big, heavy-duty, efficient, but not high-powered. It was still a relatively small voice coil. And that's why they never published their power handling ratings, because it wasn't a very powerful speaker. It was
Yeah.
probably about a 70-watt speaker.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of development that's going on in the U.S. In England, Fane is trying to figure out ways to make the speaker not blow up, not fail, not burn the voice coil. They started experimenting with fiberglass, and they had already been making hi-fi speakers out of cast frames, cast aluminum or cast zinc, whatever it was. And so magnetically inert, acoustically inert, nice and rigid, it won't warp, and they just started making guitar speakers out of it.
Yeah.
And the characteristic of the speaker, as far as they were concerned, was an improvement over guitar speakers because it didn't have all these funny mid-range peaks and dips and,
Right.
and this artificial
Yeah.
brightness coming from the pressed frame.
Yeah.
Okay. Now fast forward to the present day. Everybody understands that, like you said, the pressed steel frame is kind of part of the stew. It has these little high frequency sparkly resonances that contribute to the sound. Those can be a bad thing or a good thing depending on how thick the frame is, and how it's pressed, and how
What the hell you're trying to play through the speaker.
and the cone material, and the voice coil material, and the size of the magnet, and all those things. It's a stew. So when Fane, so back to Arthur Barnes, the senior.
He's chilling.
Fane is growing, and they're becoming a bigger
And he's the CEO
OEM,
at this point.
and they're becoming a bigger OEM supplier to all these different companies: Vox, Hiwatt, Simswatt, Marshall. They're making speakers for everybody. But they eventually start engineering themselves out of business because Celestion is taking doing more of the grunt work, taking more of the guitar speaker category, because
wait a minute.
they
Are
can
they-
compete on price.
Is Fane engineering themselves out of the guitar speaker business or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
every speaker business?
No, well, they were making really high quality, more expensive speakers, and there were other companies that were doing that too, like Goodman's.
I don't even know.
Goodman's was making more and more high end, high powered cast frame speakers, but the real business at the time, the hi-fi part of the business, was going offshore, and the guitar business was going to the cheapest sellers: Eminence, Celestion, and you name it. All the Jensen and all the American Pile.
That's right.
and
Yeah.
and all of those, which eventually all the oddball CTS and Pile eventually just got rolled into Eminence.
Utah.
Utah was big in automobile speakers.
Hey man, I had a deluxe reverb with a Utah in it. It sounded,
Yeah, my concert's
Spectacular.
got Utahs. It sounds great.
man. I don't know. if
And
people
those
talk about
speakers have that
Utahs. Hell yeah, Utahs.
People don't like Utahs in Fenders because they don't have the classic Fender scoop. I love the Utahs in my Fender because
It fills it out
it
more.
had this unique, sparkly, chimey mid-range.
But those blackface amps have plenty of scoop, man.
Yeah.
You don't need the speaker doing it too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So actually, that's kind of how I morphed into being a high watt guy, because it had this beautiful, rich mid-range.
Yeah.
And when I heard my friends' Fender's amps, it was just like, ow, 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 bottom, ow, top. And where's the mids? What? And then I played a high watt head through a high watt cap, and I went, oh, that's just a bigger version of it. So
That was really fun last year on the show.
yeah,
by
it
the way.
was. Right.
It's tracing, because you didn't even know it. We pulled the concert out, we played it, and went, wait a minute. This isn't that and because that concert is not a regular blackface Fender. It's just not.
No.
It doesn't sound like that.
No,
And we're going, wait, this isn't that far off
it's
from
not that far removed.
the high
right.
watt thing.
Right.
So when you love that amp, it totally makes sense that when you got your hands on a high watt, you're like, hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is what I'm used to. It's just bigger.
Yeah.
More of it.
Yeah. So that really informed my early appreciation of certain kind of amp sounds.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I heard first before I actually played through a Marshall. I played through a high watt first.
Uh-huh.
So going to try to play a Marshall after playing the high watt first, the Marshall was just like, I don't like anything about this. It took me quite a long time to learn how to play a Marshall. We talked about that. And once I did, I understood it better, but I still didn't appreciate it as much as its reputation apparently deserves. And then when we started doing the stuff with Joe again and really focusing on the essential elements of that, it just became a thing of like revisiting all these sort of factors in the past.
It's been
So-
incredible going through the Marshalls and the
So-
high watts and the Fenders.
So Fane's going along, and then Fane gets bought by another company. Fane tells the buyers tell Arthur Barnes, you're going to keep your position as managing director. Okay, good. They take over the company. They fire Arthur Barnes.
Oh.
Arthur Barnes
Goes to the pub.
makes a vow, a personal vow, that if he is ever in a position of buying the Fane company away from whoever might be trying to sell it, the first thing I'm going to do is take all of the assets and all of the tooling and all of the records, and I'm going to dig a big fucking hole in the ground and bury it. It's going to be gone. I'm wiping it from the face of the earth. Done.
Albert's got some feelings.
So
He's not taking it.
So
Swimming
yeah.
in.
So Arthur carried a huge bug up his ass about that for
Chip on the shoulder.
many decades.
Grab him some.
All right, fast forward. He's got 4 sons. They've in between the time that he left Fane and acquired Fane, in between that time, he had 4 sons, and he had started a speaker manufacturing company and a speaker distribution company. He was the UK and then the European distributor for Eminence for a number of years.
Wow.
And then they went into producing very high-end professional reinforcement, sound reinforcement speakers under the name Precision Devices.
Huh.
Then they got the opportunity to buy Fane at a price that they could afford because they'd grown, they'd stashed money away, and the Fane IP value had been declining and declining, and the forces converged at some point where they acquired Fane. And the sons were like, okay, well, not so fast, Pops. We're going to roll Fane into Precision Devices, and we're going to figure out what to do with it. So they had acquired some of the materials and the assets and some speaker designs in progress and released some of them. There were Alnicos that were blue.
Wait,
there
was this
were,
around 2005?
yeah,
Okay.
between 2000 and 2005.
So that's bringing us up to when
yeah.
the current owners got
Yeah.
rid of the company.
And they have their engineering team that was doing the Precision Devices stuff. So these are guys that are have some real expertise
Sure.
in designing good stuff. They
Yeah.
know what they're doing.
Yeah.
With regard to professional audio speakers, when it comes to guitar speakers, no clue whatsoever.
Yeah. Back to sort of the lab coat guy
Yeah,
model.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
never played guitar in your life, but we're making speakers
So
for you.
one of the speakers that got produced in the interim, and apparently they still make it and sell it to Hiwatt currently, is this cast frame. Everybody's cast frame, it's got to be cast frame. Well, it doesn't have to be cast frame, but people think it has to be cast frame, so everybody's pounding on Fane, cast frame, cast frame. So they made a cast frame speaker.
With the old tooling?
No, they didn't use the old tooling. They didn't want to spend the money on the old tooling.
Bah!
The original tooling was lost,
Oh, it was.
and they didn't want to remake it again. And I asked him, I said, it'll be worth your time and effort to do it because people will appreciate it, and that is like it's sort
Don't
of
have the Fane name.
it's sort of like your greenback, the 22-watt
Yeah.
Fane with the cast frame and the plastic cover that goes on
But
the back.
don't
just
further
like
water down the
yeah.
name. If you have the name, do it right.
But they
Make people happy.
they didn't want to spend the money on
Oh,
that,
that's a
so
drag, man.
they passed on all of that.
Okay.
But they had this cast frame already that they were using for some other stuff.
Uh-huh.
So they made some kind of a guitar speaker with that frame. It has a wider hole mounting pattern in it, and
What was the name of that speaker? Do you remember?
I don't know what they called it, but it wasn't called a crescendo.
Okay.
They were planning on making a version of it and calling it crescendo, but I just said when I got involved and I convinced them that was the wrong path, and after a lot of discussion they agreed. We decided to proceed with something. I said, if you're not going to make the original cast frame, then don't even pretend to make something that sounds like that, because it's not going to. They agreed with that.
Cool.
I said, then The other problem with the original cast frame high watt speakers and Sound City speakers was that they only sounded good with high watts and only under certain conditions and only specific models. So you have to go through all of that. You have to,
It's not plug and play.
you have to curate all the millions of different versions of Fane speakers that were ever made, and there were millions, because they made anything anybody asked them to do. Every possible variation and convolution, they would do it.
Yeah.
If you buy the speakers from us, we'll make it. The customer is always right. We'll make it however you want it. So there was a ton of that. So to fish through all that and identify a couple of key models was a gargantuan effort in itself. But then you go to all that effort and revive the tooling and do that, you're still not going to sell any of them to Marshall players because they won't like the sound. So I said, look, okay, if you're not going to do that, fine, then let's just make a really excellent pressed frame speaker with a good size magnet on it that's got a great voice coil assembly, a great sounding cone, put it together carefully, and there are ways to tune the frame so that it'll resonate the right way and not the wrong way, and they knew all that too. So we collaborated on this. Let's just take the original characteristic of the Fane speaker, which is this sparkling mid-range, and this even clarity that they have. Let's take that and then put it in a structure that when you push it harder, which when you push cast frame Fanes, they don't like that, and they sound really murky, and like you heard it, they kind of go make a speaker that will do what a Celestion does when you push it too hard, which is it starts to throw off these musical harmonics. But it won't sound like a Celestion doing that because it'll have the Fane voicing formula. It won't have that overbearing mid-range on it. So that's what we did. And so to answer your question, particularly the Alnico and the F70, really the only difference between those speakers is the magnet structure. It's the same frame. It's pretty much the same cone and voice coil assembly with slightly different doping around the edge. And the spider, that's treated a little differently on the Alnico than it is on the F70. So in short, the Alnico is assembled and treated to behave like a really great sounding Alnico, like a Fane version of a Celestion Blue, for example.
Right.
And then the F70 will carry the basic overall vowel voicing structure of the original Fane cast frame speakers, but add that extra little harmonic richness on the top end and have a fuller sounding bottom end, but not flubby like a Celestion. We'll control the bottom end. It'll have a nice bottom end, be a little richer on the bottom than the cast frame, but not to the point of being rubbery and flubby like a Vintage 30, for example.
Sure.
So that was all carefully, look, we're not trying to make a Fane Vintage 30. We're not trying to make a Fane Greenback. We're trying to make a Fane 22 watt speaker with a little more power and a little more top end sensitivity and a nice structure on the low end without being overbearing, but that nice even mid-range characteristic all across the mid-band. And that's what they did. And once we got that done, it was like, okay, we can run with this for a while. We don't need to make 17 different speakers.
Right.
Because, you saw what happened when Eminence started catching on.
Well, they were really good at making like chop, 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 like, weren't you telling a story about?
They made 10,000 speakers a day.
Yeah, but they're almost like like I remember DiMarzio with pickups, like so many different models.
That's right.
Like
That's
anything, and the turnaround was really fast, right?
Yeah, it's like the Jerry's Jelly menu. There's like 82 pages on that menu. You want to vomit just trying to make, just like, look, just, I don't know, just give me a grilled cheese sandwich because I'm so overwhelmed by the menu. I'm not even hungry anymore. I just want to like go shoot myself. And when we decided that we didn't want to continue using Celestion speakers, which we used for a few years, Eminence came to the rescue, and they were still a speaker company that was considered behind the scenes an OEM supplier like Fane. It wasn't really a branded speaker. They were associated with Fenders. They weren't associated with the British Sound. And I set out to change that. But when we came out with the P50, it was a very popular speaker and people really liked it. But dealers and distributors complained that it didn't have a brand name that they could push.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted us to use Celestians instead so that they could say these are blah, 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 blah. People have this association of Eminent speakers being cheap, so your cabinets must be cheap, not commensurate with a Marshall cab or any other cab that's using Celestians. And I said, well, that's just not the case. And if you listen to the cab side by side, you know it's not the case. So that means I'm not going to make your selling job easier by just giving up, throwing in the towel and giving you Celestians. You're going to sell it on its merits, and that's what's going to make it worth the comparison to the other brands that are out there that aren't doing anything interesting or forward-thinking. So that's it. And then I went to Eminence and said, in the meantime, will you please do something to raise your brand profile? And they started working on that, and then they started coming out with a series like the Red Coats and so on and so forth. That was their effort to raise the Eminence brand profile so that it would be recognizable to the average buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And that was great. And once they started doing that, then people started really respecting our speakers. Mm. And we didn't have to argue with people about why they don't have Celestians in them anymore.
Right.
And that was great for a period of time until they went fucking berserk with the brands and models. And then it got to be, look, I can't order 100 different types of speakers and figure out which one I like.
Right.
And that's what basically they're asking the end user to do, which is insane. You can't possibly do it. It's like the modern equivalent of that is having 10 different IR packs and trying to find one speaker in all of those packs that I can just use.
I think of it like looking for a Fender Stratocaster. Originally it was like, okay, there are maple fretboard ones and rosewood fretboard ones. And then it's like, well, which finish would you like?
Yeah, well, they're all sunburst, and the custom color is just like black on top of a sunburst finish that's underneath it.
Oh, but man, all the models now, like, I have no idea, you know?
Yeah, actually, and I talked to a guy at a Guitar Center location recently, and he just said, look at this. What I really want is a rosewood neck sunburst Strat and a maple neck Olympic white Strat. That's what I want. I don't want any more binding on the top, sparkle, HHS. I don't want this. I want that. I tell my buyers, just give me some regular Strats. I could sell those all day long. These I can't move. But when you go in and look at their selection of Strats, they got a bazillion Strats. And he's going, yeah, great. I can't give those away. As soon as I get like a regular sunburst or a cream colored thing or just this simple basic, the Strat that's a Strat.
Yeah.
Bang, out the door. I need more of those. But apparently they've made so many of these trick variations that people are choking on it, and that happens.
Do you remember when there was the American Standard Strat? And at least, I mean, that was during a time period where there was a lot of models coming through. But at least that was like, okay, that's the flagship model. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is now.
Right.
Like maybe there isn't one.
Right.
Maybe it's just endless variation. I don't know.
Right. Well, the only hole really in it, and then Fane comes along. We have a working relationship. They understand what I'm talking about. I understand what they're talking about. We're meeting. It's a meeting of the minds. Off we go. And they never really intended to do a new Alnico. I pushed them to do it because we were going to run it. We were going to break from the past and put a Celestian Gold in the Ether amp. So we bought a few.
I remember that.
And sold them that way. And it sounded really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ordered another batch of Celestian Gold, and we ran another batch of Ethers that we didn't think we were going to get another order. We thought we were going to make 5. That was going to be it, done. So we just bought a few Golds, sold them, and I thought, okay, that was a fun little project. Well, that isn't what happened. What happened was we started getting reorders. And so we ordered a batch of Golds for this next production. And then when we were ready, we placed the order, gave them a purchase order, means it's locked in, it's a guaranteed, we're going to take them, signed, sealed, and delivered. We're going to take them when they're ready, and when we're ready, no problem. We have a warehouse in Los Angeles. You just let us know when you want to release it. Boom, we're done.
Mm-hmm.
I went, okay. Contacted them. All right, we're ready. Ship them to us. Yeah, we don't have any. Where's my 20 speakers? Yeah, they got sold to somebody else. Why are my speakers being sold to somebody else?
Friend.
Oh well, we'll get you more. It'll take another 6 weeks. My amps are done now. And they went, oh well, maybe we could blah, 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 blah. And I said, no, that's not acceptable. I called Fane.
The disrespect.
Look, I know you guys didn't really have plans on making an Alnico, but I sent them pictures of the Ether. I told them that we were having a conversation with Premier Guitar that they want to do a cover story on it, and this was going to be a great way to break into the market with a fresh, bitchin' looking Fane. I wanted in cream to match the Tolex of the Ether.
Yeah.
I want it to be an Alnico version of the F70. We need to dial it a little bit. It's going to be an open back cab, so it can't be an F70 because just like a Vintage 30, it's not a great speaker that you want to put in an open back cab.
Right.
We'll make another speaker that will be good for open back cabs. But as far as the Ether, it's got to be an Alnico. The money isn't really the issue. It's just got to look fucking crazy good. And I sent them some photographs and some drawings, and they were like, all right, we're all in. We're going to make this for you, and we'll have you a batch of speakers in 2 weeks. From we're not going to make an Alnico speaker to not only will we make it, but we'll deliver them in 2 weeks.
What happened there, do you think?
They just saw the opportunity, and
Okay.
they saw my enthusiasm, and it was early in the relationship where everything that I said was going to happen came true.
Mm-hmm.
So they trusted me. So I went, all right. They sent me the first sample to check. It was great, but it was still using the F70 cone, and that wasn't durable enough for an open back cab. So we worked on that a little bit. We switched to a little bit more robust cone, and then we tweaked it, and I had them send me the speaker with no doping.
Okay.
And I have a little turntable and a doping tool so that I can do my own doping whenever we do a speaker.
Yeah.
I know what they're doing with the doping, and I have a little turntable so I can do it in-house.
Oh.
So I can apply, instead of having them do the doping and send it to me, and I go, they're in England, they're shipping back and forth the time. I had them send me an undoped sample, and then I put a little on and listen to it, and put a little more on and listen to it, and put a little more on and listen to it until we got it right where it should be. And then I sent them that, and I said, dope it just like this. And they did that, and they sent me the speakers, and we put them in the amps, and we shipped them, and the rest is history. And that...
I remember
that,
when you
that,
got this in, and we were listening to
then
the
we
Celestian,
and then they
and
officially released the Alnico A70, or they called it the A60. The Alnico A60. They released that, and as a standard version, and then the version that we put in the ether was the A60S, which is special because it was a different cone assembly and a different doping thing. So that speaker, the A60, the Fane version of the A60 came out the same week that Celestion announced their Cream Alnico.
No.
So Fane actually did it 2 months before Celestion released the Cream.
What happened to the Celestion order?
They said that they would go find me the speakers, and I said, thanks, I don't need them anymore.
Oh, okay. So you canceled it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
And they were actually happy that I canceled it because then they wouldn't hear from me bitching about it again. And I was happy to be off the hook because Fane came through with something that worked out a lot better for the amplifier anyway. And this goes to not manufacturing and specifications and QC and testing and how much you know and what you can hear. It is so much more about establishing and building a relationship with a supplier, with an artist, with a dealer, with whoever. It's the relationship that you build with people is what opens the doors for things to flow forward. And that ties in with the whole concept of the NAMM discussion that we're going to have today, and we're going to have that. But that was a real long explanation, but I think it really sort of needed to be clarified, and I think I told a much more concise version of it, even though it took up a lot of time. It points up to everything is about the relationship.
Okay.
And so is the placeholder that we put for the show says RIP NAMM. I still can't help enjoying creating a bogus clickbait placeholder for a show, because it's just I'm still so sick and annoyed with all the clickbait information videos that are out there about music, about everything, but especially about musical instruments and what people tell you they're going to talk about, and then what they really talk about, tell you what they know, and then they're going to really tell you what they know, which is shit. and you already know, as soon as they start talking, you already know that you're just going to get led down a rabbit hole, and then they're going to walk away and they're going to leave you at the dead end, and you have to figure your way back out of it. And in this case, we had decided not to do NAMM. All of our dealers and our international relationships and even our local guys were saying, no, we're not going. And I was thrilled to not have to participate in that, because everybody was already expressing support for whatever new product that we come out with. Whenever it's ready, we'll take it, and just make more of whatever you're doing. It's great. And we're all, okay, fine, we're down with all of that. 2 weeks before the show, all of a sudden I'm getting these emails. Hey, you know what? Have you decided whether you're going or not? Yeah, I decided that we're not. Well, are you sure about that? Because we're thinking about going. All right, if you're going to go, I don't necessarily, we won't exhibit, but by all means, come to the show. I'll buy dinner. We'll go off site. We'll go to one of the hotels, or we'll go to some local restaurant, or you can come out to the factory and I can give you a little quick factory tour, and we can go to one of the local watering holes here. Whatever, fine. Look forward to seeing you. I'll be happy to hang out and buy dinner and pick up a tab, whatever. But this started happening like every other day. Then it would be another call. Then it would be another call. Then it would be another call. And so I started going, well, all right. I put together a calendar for Friday and Saturday, and my calendar for Friday, as soon as I started making a calendar, it immediately got booked for all the business hours during the day, plus 2 or 3 hours after the show around dinner time. And then, as I started responding to all those, I started getting appointment requests for Saturday, and then Saturday got filled up. So we went down and walked the show. Oliver, our sales and artist relations guy, he and I went down, walked the show, talked to some of our dealers that had displays, talked to some of our dealers that were just visiting, talked to suppliers that went there to just have a face-to-face with us, and went out to dinner with some people, went to the bar and had drinks with others, and ended up having a really great time, partly because we weren't stuck anchored to a booth, partly because it was really great to see people that I hadn't seen for 2 or 3 years face to face and hang out, and they were all expressing the same thing, just like the weather was beautiful.
Wait, when was the last time you were at a NAMM?
This would be 3 years.
Okay. So you were there in 2020?
No. I think 2019 was our last one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you didn't go down and just hang after that?
No, we didn't even go. No, well, it shut down one year, and then.
Well, but you didn't even go down in 2020, because that would have been January before things closed. Yeah.
Yeah.
2020. Okay, Erico says 2020. So
she says 2020. What? That we did go?
You did go?
We did go in 2020, but we didn't. Did we exhibit?
Yeah.
Is that the year that we got that little dinky office? Okay. In 2020,
Yeah.
instead of having a big booth,
Right after the COVID shut down.
we got a little dinky booth instead of doing the big operation we got a little 10 by 10 booth. We got just an office. If anybody wants to meet us, we'll have meetings.
An office?
Yeah, it was a
Where'd
little.
they do an office?
It's just a little 10 by 10 sound room.
Oh, okay.
You go,
Like out on the floor, like
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. That's what Synergy did this time, by the way.
Oh, okay.
They usually have like 1,500 square feet.
But did they have
They had-
product in this little office?
They just had a couple of little things, but mostly a table, chairs, coffee, water, sodas.
So you could do the business.
You just do the business. And that's what we
not
did.
Doing the.
And we got a lot out of that doing that. So, but this time we didn't even do that.
Mm-hmm.
I just figured, well, we'll just see how it's going to be. Well, it was pretty sparsely populated. And I'm sure glad that we didn't buy a spot on the floor. I was thinking that maybe if it gets crowded enough, it's going to be difficult to find a place to go meet. But the idea was, we can meet at the Hilton bar. We could meet at the Marriott bar. We could meet at the Starbucks. We could meet at the Hilton lobby. We could meet out at the food trucks out in the outside, where the live performance stage is outside.
Yeah.
There would be all these places if they're not too crowded. Well, they weren't too crowded. I had 2 meetings in the Starbucks where they were 2-hour-long meetings with 4 or 5 people around the table. Nobody came and said, hey, you're taking up all the space. It wasn't a really crowded. Nowhere was it really crowded. You know what turned out to be great about that show? It was the right size.
Okay.
It was scaled down.
But right size from whose perspective?
From my perspective, from the people who went there that had business to do and things to talk about and conversations to have.
Okay.
Where you could actually book all your meetings and be able to go to all your meetings and to be able to discuss what you wanted to discuss at those meetings, because it wasn't so overcharged with millions and millions of displays where everybody's playing and demoing all their gear.
When did you start going to NAMM?
91.
And did this time harken back to
Absolutely
an era
did.
that you had?
It
Okay.
absolutely did, because
All
it
right.
wasn't over the top, jam-packed, crowded with people.
When did it start getting to be critical mass and like this isn't fun or even helpful anymore?
That was about 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah, all right.
And it was just miserable. There's so many people in the aisles that it took you forever to get from one meeting to another meeting. People would just literally walk right over you, step on your feet. People with baby carriages just driving right into you. Get out of my way.
Oh, I hate NAMM for all that stuff. And I don't even have all the responsibilities that you do. I just go there.
They grew way beyond what was practical for their size in in pursuit of growth, just growth for the sake of growth.
It's America, baby.
Yeah.
It's got to grow or it doesn't count, right?
And so they had the 4 halls, and then they started using the E hall, which was below the D hall,
Right.
and then they outfitted another building out in the front that they called ACC North, Anaheim Convention Center North,
Okay.
which actually is a nicer building. They got rid of part of the parking lot facing Catella and turned that into ACC North, which was a 2-story building
Really?
with a lot of natural light in it.
Huh.
Big windows around the whole front of the building.
And what are they doing in that building now?
That it's pro audio
That's
in
the
there.
pro audio. Okay.
And it was much more comfortable. It wasn't like E, where it was down in a dungeon, but still with really cavernous high ceilings.
Yeah.
That just made this echoey noise.
Right. It's
It
the worst
had-
being down in there.
It had drop ceilings, and the sound was manageable. It wasn't too crowded, but actually that was where all the real action was. All the
In
all
this
the
new
all the
pro audio hall.
plugins
Right,
and all
right, yeah.
of that stuff, the interfaces and stuff. That was the cool part of that hall. The bad part of that hall, every place I went to where I had an interest in some of the product, they'd have some guy sitting there just spitting out bullet points. He had no more idea what his product did than I did, and probably less.
Is this because...
And it would all be this happy talk. Oh man, hey bro, awesome, blah 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 blah. It does this, it does. How does it actually do that? Well, you know, it does this. How does it actually do that? What do you mean when you say this is analog? This is a plug-in. What the hell is analog about it? Well, you see the knobs up here? That doesn't make it analog. What is analog about it? Well, you know, it's analog. Inside it's analog, and then it's digital somehow. How did it get that way? Maybe you need to talk to the guy that really knows about the product. That's what I thought. And I had that conversation with 2 or 3 people, and I'm like,
Were the owners of the companies not in the booth? Were you dealing with like hired salesman people?
yeah.
Or people who weren't involved in the coding or... like...
No, they were people out there just to answer questions, and their version of answering these questions were just basically regurgitating bullet points
read
on
the
sales
pamphlet.
sheets.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was really, really aggravating. And so, but I heard the word analog in the pro audio area where everything is plugins and digital audio workstation stuff. I heard the word analog more times in that room than anywhere else on the whole show.
Whoa.
And I'm like going, okay, this is like, it's gotten really out of control. They've gone from
So did you start talking about your digital amps that you built back here?
yeah.
Take it back, Steve.
Okay,
But you hung out in that hall.
I get the concept of digitally controlled analog circuitry.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
But- If that's what it is, I'm basically asking you to verify that's what it is. And so when I ask you, just say, "Oh yeah, it's all digital interface, but this part blah blah blah." Now I ran into again, one of the great things about going this time was reconnecting with my people, my friends, my longtime association in the industry with all of my favorite people.
Your NAMM friends?
Yeah, like I met.
See him once a year at NAMM. Hey!
Well,
how's your year
no, actually, we communicate all the time, but it's great to be in the same room together, like Thomas Blug. If any of you people are familiar with Blue guitar, Thomas Blug I've known him, geez, I don't even know how long we've known each other.
been? 875
It's probably,
years.
I want to say it's at least 25 years, maybe more, but when you see him, he doesn't look old enough to have been buddies with me that long. But sure enough, I was looking for his booth, and I found it, and he was hanging out and showing his new product, which I think he's calling it an X amp or something like that. He's making a little pedal board amp that's got a Class D power in it, and it's got all these programmable stuff and amp models and this and that. That's what he's doing.
The browser's acting weird here. I'm going to try and throw this picture up of your boy.
Yeah.
Let me export this again
Okay.
while you're talking.
So anyway, I walked by his booth. He was yakking with somebody, and I walked up behind him, and while he was talking, the person he was talking was, all of a sudden he realizes the person he's talking to is looking over his shoulder at me, because this guy recognized me, and he turns around and he gives me this big hug. It was just like, what, long lost brothers getting together, and it was a real blast. And I played his prototype of his new X amp, which is very, very cool, and we talked about his concept, which is also going to be a digitally controlled analog experience with regard to, this is going to be not just amp models and a power amp in a box that goes on a pedal board or on the floor, but also all the effects that you would have on a pedal board in front of that amp. And he's making this box have all those pedal devices that are actually operating in the analog domain. So basically, whatever, you just name a pedal, a chorus pedal, a tube screamer, or whatever, they're all going to be analog iterations of those with digitally controlled parameters. Now, why would you do that? Well, it's very simple. If they are models, you don't have real-time control over the parameters. The only thing that you have control over is which copy of the model are you listening to. And it's like a flip book with models. When you're turning a knob on an amp model, like the gain knob, for example, you're not actually adjusting the gain. What you're actually doing is switching to another version of the same model that was modeled with more gain on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you turn the gain up another notch, you're flipping to another model, a discrete model,
Yeah.
a discrete wave file.
Yeah.
So you're not adjusting the gain, you're progressively selecting the next wave file, which represents a 3 dB more gain than the previous wave file in the gain department. Same with the tone controls, whatever. So you're not actually fine tuning and tweaking a single amplifier. You're just manually selecting with knobs that are labeled different things, different versions of that same model. That's why I call it a flip book. In digitally controlled analog, you're actually using a component called a resistor chip. It's a digitally controlled analog potentiometer. It's a series of resistors, and the microprocessor selects them, so it operates the same way a pot actually operates. You're just selecting through a resistor ladder, and the gain goes up, the gain goes down, the treble gets brighter, the bass gets deeper. All of that stuff is all controllable in real-time parameters.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what digitally controlled analog is, and that's what Thomas says he's doing with the pedals in his X amp. And I played through it, and I was having a lot of fun playing through it. And if you're a fan of this guy and you watched his channel, he talks about on his NAMM episode, which is just a few days ago, he talks about me walking in his booth playing into his amp, and he says, and I could tell on Steven's face that he was having a great time because he actually was experienced a real-time playing experience. And that's actually quite true. I was. Does it replace a tube amp for me? Absolutely not. But is it a much more satisfying iteration of the thing? Yes. And the other cool thing about it was, once he showed me the basic parameters and the switchable functions and the knobs, kind of general overview of the way it worked, I could start running it on my own without any help from him in a minute or two's time, to where I would start reaching for it, and he would be like, "So what do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to figure out if I've got this." And he goes, "Okay, okay, okay." So I just went blip, 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 and then I started playing All Along the Watchtower.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't record it. He recorded a few people, but he didn't record it. But when I started playing the solo to All Along the Watchtower, and I had it pretty well nailed, then his face lit up and his tongue hung out. And because it came pretty effortlessly, and it was fun. So I think that that's going to be the next thing. But I mean, look at the smile on his face. He just has this vibe that is I love what I'm doing. I love this industry. I love the guitar. I love what you do as a tube amp designer. I think you're the best one out there, blah, 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 blah. But I can really appreciate what he's doing and his journey that he's on too, because it's really the same thing. So we decided that we were going to do 2 shows. We're going to do a Malcontents episode where he's going to visit us. He's going to be in Germany, but he's going to be on the show, and I'm going to do one of his Academy of Tone live streams and talk about the similar subjects and all of that on his channel, because we just have a lot to talk about. It's really fun to interact with people like that. So that's another one of the things that I got out of the NAMM show. The other thing that I got out of it was all of our dealers that are our key dealers that expressed how important our brand is to them, as opposed to going out and just trying to convince people to buy stuff. I didn't go there with samples. I maybe had a 1 or 2 photographs of things that we were working on, and that was it. I didn't have price lists. I didn't have sales lit. I didn't have anything. I just went there to hang with my bros. And they were all, whenever you have your next thing ready, whenever it's ready to ship, you just call me and tell me how many you want me to order and then ship them to us. And I got that so many different times. I just felt like, okay, all right, this is validation. This is the real thing. This is what the relationship part was, where they know what they're getting from us. They know the commitment that we're making. They know that the relationship is just important to us as it is to them. And if NAMM is to survive, the way it's going to survive is to be properly scaled so that it operates on that level, not just grows for the sake of growth. Now, we saw the Frankfurt show collapse in the previous decade for that very reason. It just got so big that it was unmanageable, and it finally collapsed. And why it collapsed was, instead of trying to scale it down like they should have, they tried to substitute bodies to keep it running at the same size. And what I mean by that is,
you get more of the hoi polloi in there, right?
they had more consumer days.
Yeah.
Now, when you've been in a room like that for 3 days, talking to dealers and talking to artists that you work with, repeating the same stuff over and over again, after a couple, 2-3 days of that, you're shot. You don't want to talk to guys that
Tire kickers, man.
that are tire kickers. They're just there to get their picture taken in front of your booth,
Yeah.
to say hi, to play through the stuff that they have no intention of buying. They're just, can I get a free pick? Can I get a free t-shirt? Can I get a free bag? Can I get something?
Yeah.
Can I get something?
Yeah.
And like, we don't have anything. You what? You don't have anything? What kind of company is this?
Later for you,
We're
man.
the kind of company that comes to the show to represent our product to the customers, which are the dealers that buy our stuff. We're not here to hawk t-shirts and picks.
Yeah.
And people would get really offended by that, and it got to be more and more and more of that. And more companies that are exhibiting products that aren't forward thinking, they aren't moving the needle. They're just like cheaper copies of other stuff that's already out there, clones. Like the latest hottest JTM 45 clone by who knows who, and just like it was a few years ago with tube screamers. There was 80 billion tube screamers.
Yeah.
So what was really notable about this show and me walking around the floor, because I had time to walk around the floor, was that the people that really sort of tried to take advantage of the exposure by exhibiting there, the stuff they were exhibiting were things that you saw at NAMM over the last 20 years. It wasn't anything really new. We've added a feature. Like what? Well, something that used to be on a pedal board, now it's inside the amp. Like, oh, okay, that's technical development. It's not. So there was a lot of that, a lot of Me Too product, a lot of the usual ideas that are so stupid, like, really? Who's going to buy that?
Has it ever been any different, though? I mean,
well,
it seems like maybe the 0.000, whatever percent is going to be innovative because, analog
true.
guitar gear, like it's a mature industry.
Yeah.
Like it reached its maturity.
Well,
There's not a lot of
my
innovation.
big takeaway from the show is that the companies that I know that are really forward thinking, that are really trying to innovate, that are really figuring out ways to do something new in an area that it seems like it's already excavated to death, but there are things to do in that space, are very few and far between, which is great for us because we're working on things already that we didn't want to show at the show because they're not ready to be shown yet. But
right.
it just made me like, all right, nobody's even attempting to come near our space, that we're going to start showing people what we're doing pretty soon, and they're going to be like, it's going to be like the power station. There's going to be a lot of people slapping their forehead going, why the hell didn't I think of that?
But see, the power station to me was definitely one of those maneuvers, those rare maneuvers that shows up. Like, wait a minute, this is filling in the cracks.
Yeah.
And there are a few places where there are still some cracks left. Right?
There are, and where they are in part of it is the things that by doing the videos that we've been doing.
Yeah.
They're sort of informing my decisions about how to evolve an existing design to make it actually realize the potential of the things that we've been talking about that it does or could do better all of this time. It actually did formulate a way to do that and make it happen. So that was great for that. And the other part of it is all the people that already have really cool gear and great gear and specialized gear, tools to link those together to make them more useful, like the power station does.
That's where the big
that's
cracks
really
are.
where I didn't see anybody operating in that space.
That's kind of where the cracks are.
And that's
Getting
keeping
more
my
out
mouth
of what's
shut.
already been floating around.
I'm keeping my
for-
mouth shut about that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's really a place where
Coffee grinder, orange juice squeezer
it's got to be the kind of thing where
in the head.
It's only going to come from people that play music, because there's so much nuance and subtlety in there that you got to be able to be a guitar player or a musician or really tuned in to how amplifiers work and actually play and appreciate and understand the relationship between a guitar and amplifier in order to even operate in those cracks.
In the cracks of, and all these years of using this thing that I love so much, I just wish it could do this with this
one
thing.
other little thing.
If it could do that,
And
then
you know what? And when a manufacturer comes out with a new product, the very first thing that you people out there say is, "Great! Now if it just had a switch that did this."
a partridge in a pear tree.
Yeah, and we saw that with the Mark 7 release.
Oh,
there was
yeah.
a flood of that.
Yeah, right.
So we're kind of chuckling up our sleeves right now over that mentality, because it's going to be a lot of fun. I can tell you, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Hey, Steve, what's the quick answer to this?
What Sound City is closest to your favorite? What Sound City is closest to your favorite high watt? What Sound City?
And I think
Are you talking
the
about
newer
current
Sound City, yeah.
Stephen, are you talking about new Sound City or just Sound City in general?
Why don't you answer both?
Okay, well, it's funny you should ask, because the whole idea of the new Sound City was to be more in the realm of my favorite high watt, to do what my favorite high watt would do and then do more, as opposed to just getting a high watt that gets up to the point where it behaves like that, and that's enough. That's enough for a high watt, for a mid-70s high watt. This one particular
But
era.
those are already out there. You don't want to do something that already happened and just recreate it. I know that
That's
about
right.
you.
That's right. And what's really interesting is that the other people that are recreating that aren't creating any evolution of it.
Right.
They're just creating what they think the consumers want them to make it to be.
Which is fine, but I know that's not your ethos.
It's not my thing, because what I'm seeing being done is like, it's that, but it's got power scaling, which doesn't bring anything special to the table in terms of how it behaves. It's that, but it's got Zozo caps in it, which, okay, all right, stop with the Zozo caps. Here's the thing. Mustard caps are just called mustard caps because they're mustard colored. They don't have some special super property about them.
What, you can't hear the yellow in there, man?
You can't hear the yellow.
Don't
You
you
can
like
hear
yellow
that
tones?
you can hear that they're capacitors that operate like they should.
Yeah.
And then, but when you compare them to a specialty capacitor, specialty capacitors behave different, but we don't need that different behavior. We just needed it to work the way it worked with those mustard caps, which are, there were a couple of different manufacturers of them, and I think some were made in Spain and some were made elsewhere, but under the Mullard name or some electronic company's brand name. But they were really just generic film capacitors.
But didn't you tell me that you weren't super thrilled with them when you were doing the cap test? You know, when you had the wheel that you'd created.
I said I wasn't.
Let's test all of these different caps.
I
and you
said
were
I
like,
wasn't super thrilled with what?
The Zozo,
No, I was not.
yeah, which is very interesting to me because they're always kind of champion is like, hey, that's the stuff. Put those in your
But
hands.
see, that's people talking
Because
about.
they look like the old ones.
They don't look like the old ones. Number one. Number two, they don't behave like the old ones. Number
Ding,
three,
ding, ding, ding.
they cost 10 times more than the old ones, and not for any really good reason other than they can.
Because they have a cool name, dude.
Because they have a cool name, and honestly, I mean, there's a reason Marshall used them as long as they did, because they were cheap.
Ooh.
They were inexpensive to buy. And if anything, you learn, if you learn anything by looking at Marshall amps over the years, the parts selection inside the amps just get progressively lower and lower
remember
in
you
cost.
saying that. I hope, did that make it into the video?
I
Any
don't
of the
think so.
videos?
No.
Because, man, that was a really interesting point that you made. What amp were we looking at?
Well, we're getting a little off the subject, so let's wrap this one up. The purists, the capacitor purists, will say that this particular kind of film cap is better than an orange drop. I don't like orange drops because they blah, 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 blah. But these are guys that aren't engineers. They aren't product designers. They don't have test equipment where they can actually evaluate whether their opinions are legit or not. They just spew what other people tell them. Well, this guy said this and I trust him. You trust a person who is making a clone, but he's not really an engineer either. He's buying into the same thing that you're buying into, and they're designing and building their amps around that buy-in and asking you to subsidize that buy-in by buying in. But you're not getting a better level of performance, you're just getting a different level of performance, and it's highly debatable whether that performance is an improvement or just a difference, and if it's a good difference or a bad difference. So you only learn that and find that out by actually doing the science and the research. And I guarantee you a lot of the people aren't doing that, and that's why these kind of things keep popping up. So we made a little jig, as we've seen before, to
Do you have that here?
I don't think I do.
Shoot.
Among other things, to do an evaluation like that with other sophisticated test equipment that allows us to really make a legitimate scientific conclusion about what we heard and what we saw and what we measured. All those things have to go together. So now, having said that, old sound cities, I haven't heard an old sound city that really thrilled me except the very early ones. So of old sound cities, which sound city is closest to my favorite high watt would be the Sound City 100, the original amplifier that David Reeves designed for the Sound City music store chain in England. That was run by Ivor Arbiter. And he went to Reeves and offered him a contract to make amplifiers for his store, because that's what
was David Reeves doing before that?
he had been fired from Mullard. He was an engineer at Mullard.
Okay.
So he had been let go. They were downsizing, and he was, as they say in England, made redundant. And he took he got a severance package to leave quietly. And he had already been tinkering around with stuff on his own time. And he started experimenting with amplifier designs, ostensibly
So was he
to produce
properly
an
educated?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
There isn't a whole lot of information about that, but in order to work at a company like Mullard, you probably had to have an engineering degree.
Okay.
So
I figured if
imagine
anyone would
that he
know, it'd
did.
be you.
Well, see, there are real gaps in the history of Reeves's education and his evolution from being a tube manufacturing or electronic parts manufacturing company engineer to an independent entrepreneur. There are, just like his family
is his
doesn't talk
family
about
still-
it, there isn't just stuff out
It's
there.
like we should get a hold of his
I've
family
been
and
talking
interview
about.
him.
I've been thinking about that. I've been trying to get in touch with somebody that would you come up? Would you come on our modest little show and hang out
Oh
with
my
us
God,
and chat
that
with
would be
us? And
amazing.
hopefully, we're going to get somebody to respond to that, because we would really love to do that. But he started tinkering around with the high watt concept, and obviously he had, okay, this is what I'm going to do next. Ivor Arbiter comes along and says, okay, you seem to know your shit. Make some amplifiers for my store. The Sound City store concept.
Get out of the pub, Reeves.
Yeah,
Come
really.
build some.
The concept of the Sound City store was that you could buy everything a band would need at Sound City under one of
the one-stop shop.
under one of Ivor Arbiter's brands.
That's so funny. That's the
And-
beginning of rock and roll.
And
Come on in and
f-
start a band.
and for a reasonable price. That was the
Yeah.
big. He was
Okay.
really big about price. So he was a Remo distributor.
Okay.
He was a Ludwig distributor.
Okay. Here we
He
go.
he was selling Premier drums.
Okay.
And Ringo was playing a Brown Premier kit. Brian Epstein came to Ivor Arbiter and said, Ringo wants a Ludwig kit, or a black kit, or a better looking kit. And Ringo and Brian go to meet with Arbiter, and okay, we're looking for a new kit. Make us a deal. And Ringo sees a Ludwig catalog open. Oh, I like that finish. And Arbiter's going, that's way out of your league. That's a Ludwig finish. You can't get that from Premier. And Epstein made a deal with Arbiter. We'll put the Ludwig and Remo brand names on the head of the drums in exchange for a deal on the blue oyster pearl Ludwig kit that Ringo is famous for using. Arbiter had a guy that was one of those guys that does the artwork on the storefronts, on the windows.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He says, okay, I got my artist guy. We'll do we'll do a head for you. We'll do the artwork for the head for you and put it on the drum for you.
Yeah.
So Arbiter did that.
Oh, no kidding. Huh.
Why the T in the Beatles logo is capitalized and dropped down?
Yeah.
Because the regular T was stuck up and it was in the way. They wanted to put the Ludwig logo on top of it and the Beatles logo below it.
So it was his architecture.
In
like,
order
I
to,
just-
this guy had an eye for graphic arts, and he went, okay, the solution will be the T will form the foundation of the Ludwig logo, and we'll drop the T down a little ways so it'll be out of the way, but it won't look funny because it will look like it's supporting the Ludwig logo or the Remo logo or whatever the way they did it. And that isn't really looking, because it says the. But that was the reason.
Well,
that they,
here it is. Here we go. Here we go.
Yeah.
Because there's the Ludwig.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
wanted to put the Ludwig logo and the Remo logo above it, but they didn't want it to look cluttered, so they had the above the Beatles, so they put the T in the Beatles down so that they could drop the word the down so that they would have room for the Ludwig logo and the Remo logo to breathe.
Yeah.
So Arbiter's store artwork guy created that head.
Hot damn.
And Ringo got his kit, so on and so forth. Anyway, so Arbiter put together a series of stores, and when you walked into a store, hey, we're a band. Great, come right in. We're going to give you Heyman drums, Sound City amps, Arbiter pedals, Sound City microphones
What
and PA
guitars did they have
systems,
there?
Heyman guitars.
Huh.
And they had other stuff too, but their in-store brands were Arbiter, Heyman, Heyman drums and Heyman guitars, and Sound City, and then there were some Sound City amps that were also branded Arbiter. So
Really?
the
Whoa,
original,
whoa, wait.
the original,
There are Arbiter amps out there?
the original.
Are they Reeves?
Yeah, the original Sound. Let me finish. The original Sound City 100 head that says Sound City 100 in script logo above the knobs on the gold panel. There's a silver panel version of that called the Arbiter Power 100. It's exactly the same amp. It just says Arbiter Power 100 on it, and you see that amp being used by Jimmy Page in that black and white live Netherlands performance. It's the same amp. That amp is the one that the new Sound City 100 watt amp was based on. That's the one that you and I played with the Strat, cranked it all the way up into the one channel and made it sound good, and it was the only way that it sounded
Strat
good.
neck pickup.
Right.
We always
That
talk
was
about
that.
Yeah.
So
Is
all
that
I
still
did,
in your shop?
no, that belongs to John Shanks actually now. But that the new Sound City amp was an evolution of that, to take that to make it more usable and workable. So that's the closest thing. The later Sound Cities, Reeves was no longer involved. Other guys were involved in the design of those, and they took them to places that they never should have taken them. And that was another brand that got designed into obsolescence by people that didn't know anything about designing amps. It's just like, well, we're going to put a distortion circuit in there, and it's going to make distortion sounds.
There you go.
And it's going to be horrible.
That deserves an answer.
I am your dad. That's why you're here.
Okay, that was good.
Son.
Scott,
And thank you for paying attention.
Scott, dude, you set yourself up.
And your report will be due tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, man. Okay, I know you don't
Double
want to answer
spaced,
this.
proper
This is-
indentation, and footnotes.
This is me being mean to you by putting this question up.
No, I'm sorry. There are no updates right at the moment.
Okay. all
Thanks,
right.
Lefty. Yeah, we'll get there. I mean, listen to me. When I have something to talk about, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know what that means.
The paraphase phase inverter, is it worth considering? Absolutely. You will be thrilled to know that the Ether amp uses a paraphase phase inverter. paraphase phase inverter is the name of an early iteration of a phase inverter, and I'm not going to go into it deeply. But Devin obviously stumbled across it, and it's a very cool. It's not as trick. It's kind of an early attempt to get an equal value of positive swing and negative swing out of a single tube, and it does that job. It's a kind of an antiquated way of doing it, but it's certainly a valid way of doing it. It's just, to me, it's just as valid as any of the others. Why? Because it does have a personality. Every phase inverter design has a particular character trait. I like a long tail pair, but only certain conditions. I like the split load phase inverter, which is also called a concertina, because it's very uniform and linear and balanced with respect to the positive swing of the wave and the negative swing of the wave. I think that's great. I use that by itself to drive smaller power amps, and I use that followed by a voltage follower that allows it to be able to drive heavier loads like a quartet of KT88s or 6550s and stay linear sounding. So in the big amps where I don't want the personality of the phase inverter to interfere with the character and the tonality of the gain stages, that's what I use for that. And then there was an iteration of the 50CL years ago that used just the standard long tail pair that everybody's familiar with. It has a fair amount of feedback and has a presence control attached to it. And that has, and people like that amp because it sort of had that Marshally characteristic when you cranked it. It didn't sound that good in the 100CL, but it sounded great in the 50CL. So we did the 50CL that way.
Why is that?
Because it was the little amp that was better at being cranked. So when you wanted the amp to not get this whiny sound, a bigger amp would usually accentuate that whiny sound.
So what do you wind up putting in the 100 watt then?
The 100 watt is a paraphase, not a paraphase. It's a concertina. It's a split load phase inverter, just like the CLX was, and
just tweaking the recipe.
And then it's not just the phase inverter; it's what you do with the feedback, and that's really important. The Sound City amps use a variation of the long tail pair that Reeves used in the high watts. So
the current Sound Cities.
Yeah.
Is what you're talking about. Got it.
And the original Sound Cities.
Ooh.
Yeah. The key.
The Reeves era Sound Cities.
The key. Well, all the Sound Cities. The key behavioral characteristic of Sound Cities and high watts is that specific type of long tail pair.
And it doesn't matter 50 or 100 watt. That's what's happening.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
All right.
There's a DC coupled long tail pair. There's an AC coupled long tail pair. There's fried shrimp, boiled shrimp. Forrest Gump.
I know. Scrumps.
Butterfly shrimp, buttered shrimp.
Shrimp sandwich.
Shrimp soup.
Yeah. I don't remember. Man, that was awesome. Hey, so I'm just throwing this up here just to clarify. So is NAMM dead?
The concept of NAMM is not dead. The evolution of it, if they don't pay attention to what the real value behind it is and adjust the scale accordingly, it will be just as dead as Frankfurt.
But it becomes an interesting question about whose perspective are we evaluating it from, right?
That's true.
Like if we look at it from NAMM's perspective, it's regular capitalism, right? Like we just want to grow in perpetuum, right?
And they realize that they're not going to be able to do that. They're already up against that.
Right. So then you're like, all right, well, if we keep the same, if we just continue to try to grow like that, it may wind up like Frankfurt.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So what you're not necessarily proposing, but talking about is like, you know what, it can survive and be useful if we try and find a happy medium.
That's right. If it's managed,
Which we don't do very well in this.
That's right.
System,
it has
right?
to be managed intelligently.
Like there is such a thing as like enough is enough. Let's just have it be really functional and good. It doesn't have to grow forever.
One of the things that happened at this NAMM show was I ran into a couple of vendors and suppliers that I had forgotten about. I knew they existed.
Okay.
I had used them in the past.
So you were, yeah, okay.
But we had moved on for whatever reason. We grew, we moved. They
So
moved
he was
on,
busy, they couldn't booked out.
Whatever reason that you get disconnected from a vendor. It was just like, oh, that's right. You guys, you know what? You actually used to do a pretty good job for us. This happened with our sheet metal supplier. We had a sheet metal supplier that we used for decades. And then we moved to another area, and there was a sheet metal supplier really near the area that we moved to that was really good at doing everything. And the supplier that used to use had also moved locations. And I used to drive to their place every once in a while I was in the neighborhood, I'd drive over there and I'd like walk in and talk to the owner and see what was new and what was going on. And I drove by there and they were gone. I assumed they were out of business. I didn't know.
Yeah, you guys are goners.
And then 2 decades later, I stumbled across a pro audio, a high-end audio website, and a reference was made to this sheet metal company, and I went, those guys? And I looked them up, and they didn't go out of business. They just moved to a different area.
And they started making pretzels in addition to sheet metal.
Yeah, no, they didn't make pretzels. But I went over there and I met with him. He goes, what happened to you? And I thought you were out of business. He goes, well, we just moved. I said,
You did not tell me,
You
man.
did a lousy job of letting people know that.
How many customers did you lose?
So we went back to them. Actually, part of the Ether project was that the company that was making the chassis for the Ether went out of business. And so we had to find somebody that could make the Ether sheet metal stuff. And not only make it, but there's so many moving parts to the production of it that we had to have one shop that could do silk screening, powder coat paint, and metal shaping, and all kinds of different operations in-house. And that was and when I discovered them, one of the key features of that particular company was they did all that stuff in-house, and that was key to doing the next batch of ethers without there being any apparent change in any of the
How
design.
many ethers were out in the world with the old chassis? Was mine one of them?
Yeah, yours is the old chassis. There was quite a few.
How many are you calling them vendors? How many of suppliers have you had to switch out since the ether has been around for things being created for that amp?
Oh, just the main thing was actually two.
Two different things?
Yeah, for the sheet metal and for the cabinet.
Very interesting.
3, including Celestian.
And you can't hear
it's changing from Celestian to.
Oh, thank you. Here.
To.
I got you, friend.
I'm good. Thanks.
You're good?
Yeah.
All
From
right.
changing from Celestian to Fane.
Why don't you take a sip and then we'll top you off? You want some more? I think we're almost out. Actually.
That's fine. I'm good. Because I'm not.
Thank you.
I'm not drinking that much. So there's always that.
So you're reconnecting with, I guess it's like networking again.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I forgot you existed. And if it's this massive shit show, there's less of an opportunity to do that.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. I mean, I was walking from the B Hall back to the Hilton lobby, and as I was walking through the lobby, I hear, "Hey, Steve!" And I turn around, and it's the buyer from Washington Music,
Okay.
who is a great guy. I had no idea he was going to be there.
Oh, cool.
He recognized me from behind,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, "Oh my God, you're here!
Wait,
Let's
didn't
have a
you
meeting."
meet a couple malcontents there? Weren't you telling me that?
What?
Didn't you meet a couple malcontents?
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
There was a couple of malcontents that called me out in the Hilton lobby, and we got pictures. So thanks for doing that. That was really a blast.
That was really cool to hear, man.
The way they were yelling, I thought it was somebody I knew, so I turned around and I flipped them both off, and it turned out I didn't know who they were.
Well, that's
but
a
they
malcontent
But
salute.
they were so thrilled I turned around and I flipped them both off. They were so thrilled with that they came over and like were shaking hands and packing. That was the best thing that you could have done, man. That was awesome, and it was awesome.
That's really cool.
So that was very cool. I enjoyed that.
Thank you, Erico.
So it's NAMM is only as dead as they decide to make it, and I think that.
I remember the last couple years I was there.
I don't think it needs all the space that they take.
It felt like you were like in gridlock from minute one.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who would come visit booths are like, this is a cool product that I won't remember in 2 booths because I have to visit the entire show and it's too much and it's a gigantic overload, right?
I can't tell you how many times somebody would show up for a meeting or show up to suggest a time for a meeting. And
Year? Or
No,
previously?
in
Okay.
previous years. And we're like, okay, let's set up a meeting. And I had an assistant there whose job was to just sort of figure out what the schedule for the next meeting was going to be. And then somebody would walk by and go, "Hey, Steve." And I go, "Hey, back." And if they started talking to me and I'm being polite, I would speak back to them like, "I have a meeting right now. Let's talk later. Since you're not really a customer, you're just stopping by to say, hey, let's catch up later, maybe in the Hilton bar." I'd turn around and talk to the person to finish the discussion about the meeting, and they would be gone because they also got sidetracked by somebody. And that happens so many times.
It's almost like the people who are most effective had to go in there with an agenda and just stick to that. Like, you're not going in there to discover new stuff. You
Because
have
everybody
appointments
had their
and you make 'em.
calendars so full that
Yeah.
they didn't have any room, for any wiggle room to just hang out for even 1 minute.
Right.
And then
And
then
that's
I
the
would never
drag.
get back to them for 2 more days, and then they go back to
'Cause, like,
wherever, Germany, England, Spain, who knows?
The hang is like sort of that was like the traditional point of
That
NAMM.
was the point.
It's
Yeah.
the hang.
Yeah.
You know?
It's all about the relationship. It's all about what you do with the thing that you're doing something with.
I mean, I was joking about the NAMM friends that you see once a year because we always used to joke about that, but it was a real thing and it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like you talk to people year round, but you're like, shit, I don't get to see you in person except when we come down here.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
we're
exactly,
bros, but
exactly.
like, ugh.
Yeah,
You know,
I had that
that's-
conversation with Brett Petrusik, who works at Premier Guitar. He's a great guy. He also has this cool band called Fuzzard.
Fuzzard.
And
rules.
we talked about his band, and we talked about the Premier Guitar Masters of High Gain shootout that we're going to participate in with the Deliverance amp, and we talked about a whole bunch of stuff. And we were in the convention center, and we were starting to talk, and we were in somebody's booth, and they said, "We're gonna have a meeting now. Can you like get out of our chairs?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." So Brett's like, "Okay, where should we go?" And I go, "How about it's a beautiful day outside. Why don't we go grab a taco?" "Yeah, let's go grab a taco." We go out to the taco trucks, grab a taco. It only took a couple of minutes. It was great. And so that was fun. You know, I saw I noticed the other day that I read a story that Eddie Van Halen's striped guitar sold at auction
The Kramer, the custom Kramer.
$3.9 million.
Yeah, did you see that, guys? They're calling it the Hot for Teacher guitar, but he was just kind of using it. I think he used it on... Did he use it on the Diver Down tour, or was it the 1984 tour?
I don't know.
It had to be the 1984 tour because it had the spot for that stand
Oh,
that he was when he would play it like a piano on the
Uh-huh.
1984 tour. So that was the one.
mm,
I got a picture of it here for you guys if you haven't seen it.
yeah.
That sucker here. We'll bring up this question again in a minute. There she blows.
Somebody paid $3.9 million for that guitar. It's a Kramer guitar. It has a poplar body. There's nothing special about it except that Eddie played it. And an off-the-shelf wang bar, an off-the-shelf neck, an off-the-shelf pickup, and a volume control, and that's it. And it's just hilarious that I saw that article and saw how much it sold for, and I also stumbled across an article written by an author that started off his
Should we read it?
this essay.
Should we read it?
Read it?
Yeah. You want to read it?
Well, it's a long essay. We probably can't read the whole thing, but we could probably read the first part of it where he makes reference to it starts off being about Jimi Hendrix and Hendrix's guitar and somebody that bought the Hendrix guitar that was used at Woodstock, and that he came to resent the guitar. He was like enamored of the guitar, but eventually came to resent it because to him it didn't sound like a Fender, and it definitely didn't make him sound like Hendrix.
Yeah. Where's my Hendrix at? I just spent all my money. And here it is. And no dice. No magic.
And if anybody is really interested in the longer story of that, I posted a link to this author's Substack article that he posted yesterday about this particular circumstance, and expands.
Hey, I'm posting the link in the chat here, guys.
Yeah, and expands on the whole concept of the difference between owning something and having something. And I read that, I just got so engrossed in the whole concept of the difference between owning a thing and having a thing. And I interpret having a thing to mean having the facility to be able to incorporate a thing into your life, into your scheme of things, into your way of operating, something that you can comprehend and understand and incorporate into your whatever it is that you do that makes you you. Where owning it just confers ownership, and that has has the benefit of you have control over it because you own it, but that doesn't mean that it brings you any particular benefit or joy, because there's a difference between owning a thing and having a thing.
You know who has the kind of the right idea about this thing is it's sort of a patronage system within the classical world, where really wealthy people will purchase a Stradivarius or similar level instruments, and then they'll send them out with people who are actually these
Gifted.
the people who are playing with all the symphonies around the world, and they're like, all right, I own the damn thing, but it needs to be played, and it needs to be in the hands of somebody who will do it justice.
It needs to be
so
experienced.
We send it out with
it needs to be that playing experience needs to be perpetuated.
So it's like,
not just
I own it.
Not just the instrument itself, but the experience of having it, the experience of interacting with it, the experience of incorporating what you learn from being able to extrapolate what it brings to the table.
Yeah.
And then you are informed going forward about what it is about that, not just that it is this thing, but what is it about that thing that could potentially impact you, make you grow as a musician or as an artist or whatever it is that you do.
Yeah.
And that tied in so perfectly to this thing that we did with Joe and the videos, and and basically disseminating this information that there's a thing going on here. I don't want to call it magic or voodoo. I just want to call it the thing that it intrinsically essentially is, that you experience and wrap your body and soul around, and can make you do a thing that you didn't realize that you could do before, which is not play like Eddie or play like Hendrix, but embrace an ethic that you play what you would play because you feel like, well, it doesn't get any better in this. So if there's something that is in me that can be brought out, this would be the instrument I would want in my hands to attempt to do that.
Yeah.
Then I would be absolutely sure that there isn't anything stopping me from being me. As opposed to, I'm going to be more me than I was because I played this instrument that had this special property. And in fact, a poplar body guitar, I mean, come on, we can make jokes about it. The poplar is a renewable resource wood.
Sure.
And it's a very pervasive renewable resource wood. And why that's so important is because it's mostly used to make toilet paper. It just so happens that it's also lightweight and inexpensive and a renewable resource. So some guitar companies have experimented with using it from time to time, and I believe Leo Fender experimented with it. And these days, a similar thing with pine. These days, you can roast pine and poplar and sort of bring out some characteristics about that body wood that it didn't have before. They don't look as especially keen in the grain department, but that doesn't mean they can't be used. That doesn't mean you can't put like a different wood on the top of it that has a nice grain so that you can make a pretty looking thing. Yeah. But the whole point is that who paid $3.9 million for Eddie's guitar, and what did they get out of that? Did they put it in a museum so people can appreciate it? Do they, like you said, or do they just? Is it just bragging rights? And was that worth $3.9 million for you to have?
Depends on how deep your pockets are, you know.
So
right.
What? Yeah. So what is that?
Because for some people, like an ether amp is like buying a Big Mac. Like that's what kind of pockets they have. Like yeah, throw an ether in the back of my car, no problem.
Actually, we had a guy who follows the show from time to time. He bought an ether not to keep. He bought it. It was his bucket list.
Really?
Yeah, it was his bucket list amp.
Okay.
I
understand that.
I understood and believed that it was this special thing that I have to experience one time in my life. I really can't afford it, but I must experience this, and it's on my bucket list. So he bought it, experienced it, and notified us that it was worth every penny, and that he able to knock a thing off of his bucket list. I couldn't afford to keep it, but I'm so glad that I was in the position of having the money to be able to buy it and have that experience. And then I moved it on to another person who also appreciated it, and I gave him a little extra deal so that because he couldn't afford it, but he wanted it so bad. So I did a service, I did a thing. I benefited somebody else by that experience, and I fulfilled a wish of my own. That's just as good a reason to want to have that experience as anybody. And the beauty of the ether is it doesn't imply anything. By the way it looks, by the way it sounds, by the way you approach it as a player, it doesn't imply that you're going to sound like Hendrix or sound like Eddie or play blues like Stevie Ray Vaughan or better or worse or whatever. It doesn't presume to infer any of these special qualities onto you as an individual. It winds up
not playing you. You don't play and go, oh yeah, I know what to do with that. I start chicken picking here. Oh, I know, this one does the shreds. You play that amp and you're like, it's a wide open pathway.
My two favorite responses to the ether from people that I know well. One guy was so unable to comprehend what it was about that he just started running through his catalog of. So it's kind of a JTM 45 meets a Brown Fender meets his fuses were blowing as he spoke. He could not comprehend it. That just made me go.
I remember when you first had it at the show, and I would go around the show and recruit particular guitar players that I thought would appreciate it. And that was really, really fun to do because you got to come over to this booth and check this amp.
It's instructive.
And okay, fine, because they're friends with me or whatever. Like, okay, fine. And watching that drool response, where it like just like the glaze over, like, all right, fine, yeah, plug me in, whatever.
Yeah.
Like total cynicism.
Yeah.
I've played 25 amps already, whatever.
Yeah.
And they play this, and they start playing, and then they start looking at you. Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
That was actually my three favorite responses. One was the one I just described. The second one was, I'm not going to say who it was, but he was angry. He was mad at it. It so offended his sensibilities about what an amplifier should be that
I don't even know who this is.
That a friend of mine, somebody I respect, made this thing, and I can't be mad at him, so I'm just going to be mad at it. Because it's just plain wrong. I can't tell you why. It's wrong. That was great. And the third one was from Saul Cole, very good, dear friend of mine. This guy, he's the kind of guitar luthier, Cole, Koll guitars, Saul Cole. He's the kind of luthier that people talk about, all the luthiers that are out there that can do this, but he's the guy that actually does it, where you put a bunch of bodies and a bunch of necks in front of him, and he'll pick the body and he'll pick the neck and put them together, and anybody else that picks the body or neck from that pile will not make as good a sounding guitar as he did, because he knows what he's picking for. He knows what he's looking for, and he knows that when he puts them together, they are going to be up to his standard.
That's funny that you say that.
There's nobody else I know, almost nobody, and maybe Jim Tyler, that has that. He's a wood talker. I'm an amp talker. He's a wood talker.
Ah.
His response to the ether was, you know what I love about this? It totally obliterates any possible preconceived notions I might have about what I think I'm going to hear, so that when I did hear it, it was a completely blank slate, and I filled it with all these possibilities I never imagined. That, if I'd only made one and sold it to him, that would have been the one it was worth making. I would have been happy to not make another one after that. It just so happened that they're getting more in demand, and that's great, but I could have died happy just making one, just to get that one reaction.
I remember I talked to Saul once via email, and actually it was an ongoing conversation with a handful of emails going back and forth. I had a Klein guitar. Remember those? And the neck was way too thin, and I had heard that Saul did replacement necks for him occasionally. And I just wanted him to build me one.
Mm-hmm.
And his attitude was kind of like, well, yeah, I could do that, but like, you need to send the body here, because it's not just, fitting the dimensions. It's like, we need to like mate this piece of wood with this piece of wood.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember being so impressed with that guy. Like, I'm not contacting you to purchase something that, like, none of your instruments. You're just fielding like a regular stupid email about, hey, could you make me a replacement neck for this other guitar? and he took so much time and care talking to me respectfully, patiently, talking about how it could be done. And I thought, this dude is the shit. So I've never met him in person, but I'd love to, because I loved his MO. Like, I never forgot that. So I didn't know that you were buddies with him.
The whole idea that, and I mean, really, if you guys are interested in a really killer 15-minute read that article. And I'll tell you what my impression of it was at the very end was that I know a lot of people are frustrated about things that have been going on over the past 6 years, that reality seems to be warped. Everything that you thought was true seems to be subject to somebody's screwed up opinion. And I know that I've been feeling for a long time that I don't know where gravity is. I don't know where the ground under my feet is supposed to be. I think a lot of people feel that way. And reading that article to the very end, when I put it down, all of a sudden, everything felt normal to me again.
Really? Okay.
Because I read something by somebody who put all these ideas about society and about ownership as opposed to inspiration and all of these things in such a logical context that you could follow it from step by step all the way through to the conclusion of the article. And my reaction was, I don't have to give a shit about that anymore. That just totally made sense to me. And I feel good about everything that we've been doing, everything that we are doing, and everything that we will be doing is going to be the right thing.
Give me something that you no longer give a shit about after having read about that. Right from the hip. What do you think?
Anybody that just says stuff to get a reaction, I no longer have to give that a second of my precious life on this planet, not a microsecond. Those people.
Have you been sensitive to that in the past?
I have. I've been feeling like, where does all this stuff come from? And it's no more significant in my life than the stuff I have to deal with to get my sewer fixed. It's just the sewer is backed up. And once the sewer is fixed, then I won't have to think about the sewer anymore. And that's how I felt about that. Another fun thing that happened was an artist that we've worked with for on and off for a long time, Aaron McLean, who's a great guitar player, cool guy, super sweetheart. He played, I think he toured with Mark Anthony for quite some time. In the last 10 years, he's been touring with Air Supply. And he also does sessions, and he does his own music, and he's really a gifted guitar player, but he's first and foremost a down-to-earth human being, sweetheart of a guy. And he has been using our stuff for a long time. He's like SML, dying for the Ultra Lead to be available as soon as humanly possible because he's waiting for one. Had a session last week working on some new material for Air Supply and wanted to borrow an Ultra Lead. And I said, I don't have one. I've got something that you can use. I can loan you a Deliverance. I can loan you 100 CL. And he goes, what's that? And I said, honestly, it's actually I said, I've got a SIG X. But based on what you have been using in the past, probably the 100 CL will work.
What is he? Does he own any of your heads?
He's got that 212, that 92 212 classic combo that we had in the shop a couple of weeks ago.
Got it. So what was it about the Ultra Lead that he wanted?
This is the beautiful part about it. I know it's going to be great. I've always loved the amp that I bought in 1992 or 3. I still own it. It's still in pristine condition. I toured with it with all the bands that I've been involved with, and I heard that this new one is coming out. I just know it's going to be great, so I'm just ready to buy it. I don't know what it's going to sound like. I don't know what it's going to do. I don't know anything about the new features. I could give a shit less. Just let me know when it's ready. Right?
Yeah.
So I took the 100 CL out, and I said, this will cover you for what you need it to do. And he goes, I don't know about this amp. And I said, yeah, a lot of people don't. It kind of was a dark horse in the line. Didn't sell very well. And he's like, why did it not sell very well? And I said, because it went over people's heads. Very simple amp in my mind, but it went by people. And he went, well, if you tell me it's going to work for the session, then it's going to work for the session. Relationship, trust.
You've told me this is your favorite, possibly your favorite amp.
Possibly my favorite amp that we've ever made. But if I tell people that it's available, dealers, you should have this, they're like, tell me about it. Well, it's got these 2 channels that they can be set up any way you want. You can have 2 cleans, a clean and a dirty, 2 dirties, 2 high gain, 2 death metal amps, 2 blues. You could just, we've heard that so many times. Okay, let me send you the amp and I'll prove it to you. Well, a lot of people just, it does that because you are the type of player that has the facility, that you have it in here to get it out of there.
Sure. Right.
If you don't, whoosh,
Struggle bus?
it goes right by you, like
Yeah.
like when you're out in the desert and you have a glass of water left and you're just trying to hitchhike to the nearest town, and the car seems like it's slowing down as it's getting to you, but it's not really slowing down. It just seems like it's going slower because it's getting closer to you. And how you know that it didn't slow down is when it passes you, it goes by in a flash. And that's what that amp did. And
Show it.
And I have one here. It's the one on the left. It's a 2-channel amp. You could set either channel to be as clean or as overdriven as you would ever need it to be. And it's got an EQ. It actually originally came with the EQ as an option, and later on we just made it always have an EQ.
Okay. Is this a later version?
Yeah, and that's my NAMM badge, by the way. And just to give you an idea what the front panel looked like compared to the SIG X, which a lot more people are familiar with because it was a much bigger seller. The SIG X was the kind of amp that people sort of expected to see from us because it does all these things. The truth is, the SIG X, the 100 CL did everything that the SIG X could do and more.
That's bananas.
With less stuff.
Shit on the front.
Yeah.
Man.
But we never figured out a way to explain that.
I mean, that's crazy. That's a really clean front panel, Steve.
He brought it back the following Monday. It looks clean. It looks cleaner than you would think, because it's got black push buttons and not gray push buttons. So there's a bunch of push buttons on there, but you just don't see them because it's black on black on black. And but he brought the amp back Monday, and he was just like, just can't believe what I heard. I can't believe what I heard. And he said, maybe I should get one of these instead of the Ultra Lead. And I said, yeah, but we're not going to make this one anymore.
Yeah.
He goes, that's too bad, man, because that's a great sounding amp. I would almost take that over the Ultra Lead. And I said, yeah, but
just wait.
We're not going to make it. And he goes,
we're not going to make it anymore.
He says, okay, well, is the Ultra Lead going to be as good? I said, okay, let me put it this way. We stopped making that amp in 2002, I think.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
And think we might have had enough chassis to make 3 or 4 more after that maybe between 2002 and 2010, maybe we made about 5 more. but and see, it's the funniest thing is the general public did not get it, but every person that bought it, you go over to their place and try to take it from them, you're gonna be dead.
That's a funny idea.
Every single person that
Give me that.
that really got that amp still has it, and we get these emails every once in a while. What tube should I put in this? By the way, I'm going to my grave with this amp. You know, it's one of those things. You either it worked for you and you stopped looking for an amp ever as long as you live.
Weren't you saying this thing where like when you release a product, like some of them just kind of go out there and you never hear from people.
They
and
go
you're
in,
like,
they go into the fourth. They go into the fourth dimension, and that's.
But they're going into service, and people are just happy. They're not broken. They're not coming back. They just went out and they're doing their duty out there. And
Yeah,
you're like,
but
fantastic.
but that particular one went out at like a fraction of the numbers that the other amps did. But the people that got them, that got the concept of it, were even more diehard than anybody else. But the people that couldn't imagine that a preamp, that a channel that could do overdrive would also be capable of doing super, super clean. It just could. No, that's just not possible. But here it is, right here. Yeah, no.
Man, I was paused on like comments from the first like 15 minutes of the show. There's so many people who've chimed in. Sorry, guys. Just trying to keep.
See,
track
there's
of this.
there's one at the end there. 50 CL with EQ, my favorite head ever. That's the same. It's the same thing with the 50 CL. There's like a die-hard contingent for that amp.
Hey everybody who showed up here who we haven't said hi to yet.
Who do we have?
Like lots of people.
I'm sure we do.
Dave Friedman's here. Amanda's here.
Hey, Amanda.
Kelly B. Hobarodi. All these awesome people.
So I actually dropped in. Hey, Dave, if you're still here, looks like you are. You down?
Hello.
Is this right? Am I at the bottom? Yeah. Yeah. So I dropped in on Dave's show. I didn't make any noise yesterday, and no, you cannot. And here's why. I'm not done with it yet. I've got. Well, if you need it, of course, you can have it anytime you want. Dave's talking about the high watt PA head. Amanda, thank you so much for being here. You just made my day, letting me know that you're here, and I've been blabbing my brains out so much that I didn't notice. So my apologies for that. I have, as a result of doing these high watt video things, I've got more and more people like, hey, I got one of those. Can you look at it? And I will, and I'll tell you why I will, because I'm just a sucker for those things. I want to know more of the subtle ins and outs. That there isn't enough valid, legit, honest, to the bone information about these things. Everybody parrots the same stuff. It's the wiring. It's the, David Reeves just blew fairy dust in them, and that's what makes them sound the way they do. Or it's the tubes, or it's hi-fi, or it's like every single stupid thing that you can say about an amplifier that isn't true gets said more about the high-watt DR103 than anything else on the planet, bar none. And what my mission is to convey what it means to me and why. And that is something that I want it to be information that you can rely on, count on, and demonstrate for yourself to be true, so that when you plug in and play it, I want you to say, that dude totally nailed what I'm experiencing.
My favorite thing, and it's in the last video that we did, when you were playing through, it was right towards the end of the video. It was after you turned everything up, and you just started playing, and then you stopped and you went, guys, anyone who has one of these amps, You have to do
Just
this.
do this. Just do
You
this.
have to
Don't
do
think
this.
about it.
Yeah.
Don't give me this. Well, Dave Reeves is going to turn over his grave. No, the hell he's not. He's sitting in a killer pub somewhere in the hereafter, just enjoying the most bitchin' Newcastle you can possibly imagine. He couldn't give a rat's ass about what's going on down here with all us cretins.
Are you looking for more questions?
I was just looking. When can I move back in? Listen, you know something about parents is that they do one of two things. They either pile unrealizable expectations upon you that you will never be able to live up to, or they let you be yourself and encourage you to do whatever it is you're going to do. And that's the kind of parents I had. And to this day, I think that the thing that best prepared me to make my way in this world was my mom just saying, I trust that you're going to go out there and do something great. And my dad's attitude, which was to my mom, just let him go out there and do what he's going to do, and he's going to do one of two things. He's going to fall on his ass, and we're going to need to drag him back, or he's going to fall on his ass and pick himself up, or he's going to find his way. Either way, we don't have anything to worry about. If we need to be there to help pull him back, we'll be there. If he needs us, we're there. If he doesn't, then he's fine. We're not going to worry about it until it's time to worry about it. And that's what anybody...
Well, to me...
I can't imagine anybody having a better gift in their life than that.
Well, you're really... At that point, it's like, where's your vote falling for the job you did as a parent? You remain a helicopter parent if you feel like you didn't do a good job.
And that's exactly
You know
what
what
my
I'm
mom
saying?
says all the time.
It's like I told my kids from the very beginning, as soon as they could comprehend what this meant, was like, my job is to make myself obsolete. If we're doing our job right, it's like, let's get us out of the picture and you do you.
And when
I'll
you
walk
read-
alongside you
Yeah.
as guidance,
Yeah.
but
And
you
I
can
don't
do this on your own.
And I don't have kids, but I have it.
Well, yes, you do.
The-
You're Scott's dad.
I have this, and I have my company, which is our extended family,
Right.
which our people need help, they need guidance, they need protection, they need understanding, they need encouragement, they need shit to do, they need to get this fucking job done tomorrow or I'm going to kick them in the face. They need all of these things. So in that way, I sort of can understand what being a parent is like, but being an actual parent like you is probably another thing. I can't wait for you to read this article because I think it's going to have the same impact on you that it did on me, which is somebody wrote down exactly how I feel and has reaffirmed for me that I'm doing everything right. That's what your takeaway is going to be, and you're going to appreciate that somebody else understands that and knows that.
But unless I'm
So
doing anything wrong.
pardon the deep shit. Now let's get to the really crazy crap. You know what? My dad was a stock car racer in 1950. So he was 25 years old, and this is the guy that taught me how to drive. I'm responding to Scott. Dad, teach me how to drive, please. You want me to teach you how to drive? I was I had to run over to the shop to pick up some things before we did the show today, and I get in the left turn lane, and somebody was coming the other direction, watching their phone, and they got into the middle lane way before they were making a left turn, but way before they were supposed to be making a left turn. And so they were in, basically, I was in the correct left turn lane to make a left turn lane, and they were in front of me. And instead of pulling out of that lane and letting them be stupid, I stayed in the lane and I looked at that driver right in the eyes and drove straight towards them. And I'm like this. And I was also looking to my right to make sure that I had it out if this guy was completely oblivious to what was going on in the world around him, so that I could bail out into the adjacent lane if I needed to. But I just looked straight in his windshield and drove straight towards him. And then he was just kind of drifting because he wasn't really paying attention. And all of a sudden he went, "Rah!" and got out of my lane and then went back into his left turn lane. I got that from my dad. He was just like, you don't let anybody intimidate on the road. You drive responsibly, you drive carefully, you drive defensively, but it doesn't mean that you need to excuse every stupid thing that goes on out there and that you have to make concessions to everybody on the road, because that doesn't get you anywhere either. That just gives them a chance to kill the next person down the road. So he sort of taught me to drive defensively, but sometimes a little thing isn't necessarily a bad thing either.
I've seen a lot of concentrated dangerous driving in the last around here. I really have.
Concentrated.
For real.
Offensive.
I mean, it's LA, so you're always getting some of that. But like just this past week, I've seen some. Woo!
Oh, I was on the way over to the shop. There were two guys in some high-end.
Nika-chan. It was Nika-chan. You're responsible for all of it. I know.
Oh.
I'm kidding.
There were some guys racing on the surface streets.
Oh, awesome.
While on my
street?
way to the shop. It was on Victory.
On Victory.
And they're like cutting in and out traffic, driving in the opposite lane of traffic to get ahead of each other and stuff like that. I'm just watching this going, somebody's gonna die, it's not gonna be them, and it ain't gonna be pretty. And it's an intersection where several innocent people have died at this intersection.
That was Dave coming to get his amp back. Dave, that was funny. It was a race to your crib.
You can have your amp back, but you can't have the tubes that are in it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so I was gonna crash your party last night, Dave, a little, but only to say hey to a couple of people, and then I realized that I would only really be able to make the impact that I wanted to make if I bought a super chat, which I was willing to do, but I didn't bring my credit card with me, so I didn't have a way to do a super chat, because I was gonna do a super chat and like really bust up your party, and because I was in that kind of mood. I've been in that mood for probably a good
squirrely, Steve.
3 to 6 months, probably 6 months. Maybe the whole year.
How do you maintain a mood for 6 months, man?
It's a high energy. Nothing is standing in my way. I can do whatever I want and need to do right now. I have the opportunity to do all the things that I want to do.
Because cocaine's a hell of a drug.
And cocaine is a hell of a drug. No, I'm not drinking remotely
Actually,
as much.
I remember you said at some point, like, I've been dehydrated, I got hydrated, and then everything shifted.
That's true. I have been.
You're like, no more fuzzy brain. Now I'm ready to.
Dave says
you've been that way since 1989.
No, dude, I've been that way since 1969.
Oh shit! Here we go.
But you've only known me since 1989, so
that's a fair point.
Who's Dr. Roxo?
I didn't know.
I don't know.
Apparently you.
And I have not been into
water is
tequila
good.
again. I've been trying to get into tequila again. It's just that every morning I wake up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. So Dave noticed that I said I can give him his tube amp. I can give him his amp back without the power tubes in it. He's like, no.
I went this week with no caffeine, no alcohol, no eating after 8 p.m. I was doing like detox time.
Yeah.
Here's Dr. Roxo, the rock and roll clown. He does the cocaine. Okay. Thank you, Scott.
I don't know about this person.
What about this?
How much power it puts out. Period. The end.
Ba-dum-bum-ba-dum-bum. Yes.
252
no
has
caffeine.
EL34s. 292 has KT88s. And it's really funny about power amps. Over the decades, people buy different power amps for different reasons, different justifications. It used to be, I need more power. Then it became, well, I don't need the power of the 292, but I like the KT88s, and I'll bet you half of them don't know the difference between a KT88 and a radial bias tire. But they have it in their mind that there's a thing about KT88s that they just got to have, and if the KT88 is in that amp, it has that thing, whatever that thing is that they don't understand. And I'm being honest with you guys, not to belittle you or tell you that you don't know anything. I'm telling you this because there is so much bullshit misinformation out there about what these things really mean that somebody has to be the person that breaks the news to you that it probably isn't what you think it is. And over time, we'll spend more time explaining maybe what those things are, and maybe you'll tell us what you why we have the show, why it's a live stream. You can tell us what you think that you're buying this for, what you think this thing brings to the party, so that we can tell you either you're onto something, you're wrong, or it's different than that, and why. Not to be, chastising you from on high, but to
I see it a totally different thing, Steve.
Clear the decks.
It's just finally kind of going, I'm just going to add one voice into this echo chamber. That doesn't typically get heard. And I think that's kind of why you wanted to do this show in the first place.
That is. And it's what's really interesting about the show that relates back to this article was that you said one time that you said to me when we were talking about what the show was going to be about, or blah 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 blah, or what we had a conversation about what you bring, what I think you bring to the table, and you said, well, it's really your show, and I said, no, that's wrong. And so I'm saying it again publicly, it's not my show and you're just like a moderator. The reason this show exists is because, and this is what I got out of reading that article. I was able to articulate to you where I wasn't able to in the past what I mean by that, which is that the only reason that this show exists and we can talk about these things the way we do is because this is the kind of conversations that you and I have, and I don't have these kind of in-depth conversations that are sustainable with anybody else because they don't understand what I'm talking about. And you ask questions and you're curious and you have some knowledge and we work these things out together. You think that I know all this stuff that I'm talking about.
No, I don't. I know you well enough now to know how it's actually going down.
I don't. I do in a lot of cases, and I don't in some cases.
It's constant inquisition.
Constant inquisition and digging down to the bottom of the barrel to figure out what is the root, what is the fact, what is the foundation. All of this stuff. I don't know anybody else that would have the patience to go through this with me than you. And that's why it's not just me and you helping. This show doesn't exist without you, pal. And that's the bottom line. So
Dave is dropping bombs in the chat right now. He's cracking me up. Like Joe will be on the floor again. Dave, I remember when I was on the floor, I remember hearing you say, looks like Joe lost. Do you remember that?
Yeah. That was the best. That was the last Dave's last words before he went home crashed because he was so drunk, and then woke up
Woke up.
and said, "Not only do I have a monster hangover, but I have COVID now."
Oh man, yeah, I had. No, I don't think Dave got COVID. Dave,
Yeah,
you
he
didn't
did.
get COVID.
Yeah,
I
he
did.
did. We all did.
You did.
We
I
all
don't
did.
because
Yeah.
David had it
No,
had
he
it earlier
he
in
got
the
it
year.
again.
Really?
I think so.
Can you confirm that, Dave? Did you get COVID after coming over here? I thought you did not.
I have still not.
And Dave's saying that's not tequila.
It's sure a bitchin' looking bottle.
He's pulling out the snobbery.
Well, that's why I have this.
Hey, wait a minute. Hold on. I know what I need to grab. This will be great. This is a relic from when Dave was here.
Ah, okay. Well, this is what I got for my birthday, which I still haven't been able to open yet because
It's a Dave's favorite. That's why I had it.
I just haven't. There's just too much going on. I'm too busy. I'm having too much fun, and we've been doing the show on Sunday night. And if I open this, Monday and Tuesday would be a blank spot. So, this, whether it's the best tequila of these days or not, is irrelevant. What's relevant is that I'm not going to make a serious dent in this until Dave comes on the show again and helps us with it. And we'll make sure that we make margaritas that will taste amazing with this, because that's what Erico does. She makes amazing tequila drinks out of Drano, and it'll be great. And then this is the one that Dave says is the shit. And just so you know that I'm not talking out of my ass, I don't have time to drink this. I also haven't cracked this, no matter how many times Dave says, this is the shit. I went and bought it, but I still haven't had the time to crack it open.
Look.
And then we have this, which Dave brought over for his episode. And just to further underscore
That
my
probably
point,
still has COVID
how
cooties
much,
on it.
It probably does. How much time I haven't had to devote to consuming tequila. This still has the same amount of tequila it had when you left the last time, which is this much. And that means that from here to here, you drank most of it. So
Well, no, I remember he kept filling mine up again, and that's
you
why I was
too,
on the
yeah,
floor.
yeah.
It was martinis and tequila,
That's right. That was a
and
fun
we also
show.
did that
I'm drinking my chocolate
drink your
Italian
chocolate.
wine.
I kind of want this now.
Well, I'm happy to. You've got a shot glass right there.
I'm gonna have a little. You know what, Dave? What's wrong with you? I'm gonna have a little sip here. This is from July. That's not. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, you got it?
Oh, Scott. Oh my God, that's good.
The only thing that's wrong with me is I haven't.
God,
I've
that's
been too
good.
busy doing stuff that's fun that I want to stay on that role as long as possible. And then when I'm ready, when I've got enough of my projects done that I can chill out a little bit, then I will call you, Dave, and we'll go on the biggest motherfucking bender that the world has ever seen, and that'll be a good thing too.
Well, we should have Pete and Dave come over. That'd be the
Yeah,
funnest
that
thing
would
in
be
the
awesome.
world.
And yes, Erico does help a lot. Gin and tequila. You guys like
Sleeping
pain.
in the
No,
tub.
no, we don't like pain. We have. Okay, there's a reason that Nico-chan has the fan base that she has. Not only is she amazing,
She's
not
awesome.
only is Nico-chan an important part of the show, but she doesn't make anything that isn't great when it comes to the bar side of things. I keep that whenever I say something
Well,
sort of
the food
half-assed
kind of
like that,
thing.
I hear Tina Turner's voice in the back of my head. We never ever do nothing nice and easy. We do everything nice
Well,
and rough.
hey, you know what? We should have Erico on the show. Like Erico, not just Nico-chan. What do you say?
Wait, are Nico-chan and Erico two different people? Yes, they are. Nico-chan
I
is
suppose.
Nico-chan. Eriko is Eriko.
Nico-chan is fueled by Eriko.
Nico-chan is fueled by Eriko. Hi, Alyssa.
Alyssa! That's my girlfriend.
Thanks for being here.
Hey! Look what I'm drinking. You know what this is.
Is Pete a tequila drinker, Dave? I asked about the power sections because I have a GP3 and wondering whether I should invest in a power station to get the full expert or need a 252. No. If you need stereo, I'm answering this question. You want to put it up, the combo?
Which one?
Sembo Biohazard about the...
It's back.
yeah.
This one.
Yeah. I never try to sell a product to a customer that doesn't need it. Pete drinks coffee.
Dave should bring Jake instead. No, you bring the whole crew and we'll all die.
Yeah.
Happily.
Okay, if we're going to do a show like that, then we should basically do it live from...
the infirmary?
No. What's the place in Hollywood, the old Italian place?
In Hollywood?
Yeah. It's been there 100 years, the Italian... Musso and Frank. Yeah,
yeah.
We should do it from there. Okay.
BMO says from Vegas. Actually, that kind of makes sense.
See, every time I think about alcohol in Vegas, I think of that movie Leaving Las Vegas, which is a fucking brutal movie. But it's great.
Musso and Frank's. That's
Speaking
the
of
one.
movies, this weekend I watched the Ray movie again for about the 10th time, which is fantastic. And I also watched The Big Lebowski for probably the 50th time. Because you could just never watch that enough times.
You know, Alyssa and I watched Soul last night.
Oh,
the
yeah?
Pixar movie. It was incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, the reason that you would get the power station is because you can use it for all kinds of different things besides just powering your GP3. With the power amp, you only want to get a stereo power amp if you're really going to use it as a stereo power amp. If you're not, don't waste the money. Then you're going to have a power station. You're going to go, oh, I can use it for this, this, and this, and all the 19 other things that you can't use the stereo power amps for. Wouldn't that be great though to do like to get Dave and Pete and us together and like to totally do a Vegas road trip?
That would be amazing.
That'd be
I
cool.
would die because I can't, Dave, I can't do what you do, man. I tried to follow along and I lost. You were very generous. You just kept pouring me more. Okay, tastes delicious.
In the early 80s.
Okay, hold on. Dave, is Jake a heavier weight than you?
Jake would win.
You think Jake? I'm curious about that. Sorry, I interrupted you.
That's
but
right.
I saw that and
That's right.
I want to know what
Wait, now you're
Dave
thinking.
thinks.
In the 80s, my roommate was in this band, and they had a gig in Berkeley, and they needed a driver to drive their van up to the gig in Berkeley and back.
Okay.
So they rented a van, they put all their stuff in it, and they just wanted to chill out and have somebody drive the van for them. So I volunteered to do it just for the fun, just for the road trip aspect of it. And I got so hammered that I passed out in the back of the truck, and they had to drive the truck up to San Francisco.
So you lost.
And
You
then
lost.
I
that
totally
one.
lost.
Yeah.
Well, they got back together a few years ago.
What were they called?
It'll come to me.
This is so good.
I'll look it up for you. because they're a very cool band.
Hey, Pete's in the house.
They had a lot of notoriety there for a while. Dream Syndicate.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we were all
I
buds.
remember them.
And I just totally blew it. I got so hammered, and they had to.
I'm your driver.
Yeah. So they got back together a few years ago and started playing shows, and I hadn't seen a couple of the guys for a number of years, and so I went down to the local gig that they were doing in LA to see them, and it was all love and hugs and fun, and everybody was so happy to see each other. And I said, so where are you going next? And they said, oh, we got a gig in San Francisco in a couple of days. And I said, well, I owe you one. I'll be happy to drive you up. And they all just cracked up.
They
Because
remembered that.
They totally remembered.
Yeah.
It was just like,
Wow.
they went, I said, no, seriously, I will actually drive. And they got a big kick out of that, but
that's funny.
they didn't call me, so that should tell you something.
You missed your calling, Steve.
Yeah.
You could have been the driver for the Dream
Yeah.
Syndicate, dude. All right, we're 2:46. We're closing in on the 3-hour point. Are we?
I
we
think
blabbing?
I knew that this show was going to have a lot of tentacles to it, and
Let's get Nico-chan's vote. Do we need to shut up and go away? Oh shit!
well, I think
Hold on.
I think she's going to tell you, PJ.
Hey!
Dun 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 Nico-chan,
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
what do you got?
Nothing. You guys shut up and just go home.
Just shut
It's
the hell
almost
up.
3 hours. I thought we are going to talk about the quality stuff, including my OCD story. But I think it's OCD story should be next time. We just talk about the OCD next time.
The next show is going to be about
Oh.
OCD.
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 We did have a great
OCD.
story that we
OCD.
rambled on and overlooked, and so we don't want to like kind of blurt it out the last 15 minutes and then and then sort of diss it, because one of the things that we do is we obsess over everything that goes in an amplifier, and this is a story that
You always teach me I'm an OCD too much. But
yeah, I tease the crap out of her about being OCD,
but
but it does have its place.
That's your secret weapon, though. I think.
But we have a story.
We have a great story.
Are we going to tell it tonight, or
No.
is it going to be a cliffhanger?
It's going to be a cliffhanger.
Oh.
Next time.
OCD
and
episode.
it's going to be worth the hang. In fact, maybe the whole show could be about that.
Yeah, I
Oh,
thought
okay.
I'm gonna come out and talk about my OCD stories and
Scott wants to know
yeah.
how your colon is doing, Nico-chan. Are you recovering?
Yeah,
Yeah?
well, I think.
You think?
Well,
Do you need to consult your colon before you answer? You need to think about it a little bit?
well, I have to see my doctor in the 3 years.
Okay.
So. Well,
So that'll be next episode. Is that what you're saying?
well, in
the
the
colonoscopy
3 years,
has been
I'll report what's happened with my colon.
OCD and butt stuff.
Yes.
Episode 9 of the
Yay.
Malcontents.
Butt stuff. In fact, that's going to be the title of the episode: OCD and butt stuff. And only you guys will know what that's about.
Are we going to do that?
Sure.
Are we going to put that out there?
Well, why not?
OCD.
Okay. Can I get a vote on OCD and butt stuff for the title of the next show?
Well, you guys have to talk about your butt stories.
Hey, I've had a colonoscopy. I can talk about that.
Yeah,
I got some butt
I
stuff.
had a colonoscopy last year, this year's and last year's, and then I had a polyp and then chop off, cut off. And
Oh, well,
have
hey,
a
well,
claw
save it. We're gonna you don't want to.
That's right. We talked about that. The tattoo,
Yeah.
the internal tattoo.
Oh, the
Yeah,
tattoo,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's my first tattoo of my life, and then I can't even see it.
Yeah,
myself.
you can't even show it off.
Yeah, but in Japan, is you can't have a tattoo on your body to go to like a public bath.
Okay, we have a pretty
Yeah.
much unanimous
But I
approval.
can go to public bath
And,
because I have a tattoo in a column, so nobody can see it. So unless you have like a colonoscopy
So
cannula.
Alyssa says, just call it OCD butt stuff,
OCD, OCD,
and skip the and.
OCD.
The malcontents, OCD butt stuff. It's over. That's either where we jump the shark or we become a sensation.
Steve always teasing me I'm OCD. He's like, stop OCD, stop OCD. But I think he should
I'm basically-
really appreciate what
I do really appreciate that, but
Oh.
I'm also projecting because I'm probably pretty close to as OCD as you are.
Yeah, but it's like you're the secret weapon, right?
Yeah.
Like there's.
Well, you learned it from. Well, you did learn it
No.
from me.
You surprised me because the first time we were going out and I was folding the receipt corner to corner.
Oh.
I think you goad each other to further heights. And I remember, I don't know if it made it on the last video, but you were talking about, you walked in the room.
Yeah.
Steve had worked on this amplifier. And we're all going, yeah, it's sweet. And you walked up and you're like, no, it's not there yet.
No,
And Steve's like, I know what she's doing. She's challenging me.
Yeah. She's throwing down
Exactly.
the gauntlet.
Like, all right, smart guy. Yeah. Everybody's saying you did a great job. Yeah, it's not there yet.
Not there yet.
What are you going to do, Steve? You're like, okay, all right.
My philosophy is anything you can do, I can do better. Anything you can do, I can do better.
So Scott says Steve is OCD. I can prove it, Steve. I didn't reform the caps in my amp. I just changed them. OCD butt stuff featuring Dave and Pete. You might be onto something there.
Maybe we have to have OCD stories next time then.
Well, I imagine
Everybody bring the OCD stories.
I think there's
something to that.
Yeah, so let's discuss the OCD
I think we need to
stories.
tell the tale of the flying penises on this show, too.
Well,
They don't know what that is yet, but I
Right.
think we
really?
should do it.
Well, I thought we discussed
We did
about
discuss
it.
it.
Yeah,
Did we?
did.
Yeah.
And then we
Who knows about the flying penises? How many people know about flying penises? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Pete's gonna be like, wait, what? Exactly.
flying penis.
If we don't do the next show as OCD butt stuff, I think people are going to be disappointed. I think that's what it needs to
And
be.
one thing that we do not want to do is disappoint.
Hell no, we love you guys.
Well, I just have my OCD story.
Kelly B got it.
This one is a big one. Yeah.
I-
Steve's been teasing me because I'm OCD, but this one is really big, and then Steve appreciates it.
Okay,
Yep.
awesome. So that definitely goes. Oh yeah, Kelly's saying it. Yep,
Yeah,
we did.
yeah. In fact, I told Josh Fiden
Yeah.
of Voodoo Labs.
Yeah.
I told him the story that we're going to talk about on the next episode.
I don't
And
think I know this story. either.
And he texted.
I'm not gonna tell you.
don't know.
Until next time.
Yeah. He texted me. But Jesus! With 3 exclamation points.
Yeah.
So.
So it's a real good one.
All right. This is actually a first. We're doing a really compelling teaser of the next episode.
Are we actually learning how to do this stuff?
I don't know.
And then,
we didn't fuck up the sound. We didn't fuck up the mute. We didn't fuck up.
I didn't wind up on the floor.
You didn't wind
You
up
didn't
on the
knock
floor.
over a
I
drink.
didn't knock over any drinks. I switched to the camera, boing, and actually got it to work right. And
Nico Chan made a guest appearance.
jeez, we're like really.
You didn't give me a black eye. I didn't kick you in the shins.
Yeah, I think we're getting complacent. So I really think
We're not drunk. But it would really be great to have Dave and Pete on the show. If not the next time, but very soon. So let's make that happen, guys.
Yeah.
I know everybody in the chat's like fans and friends all around, so that would be really, really fun.
All right, see you next time, Nick. You guys.
Is it about that time?
Yeah. I want to say thanks to everybody for hanging out as usual. I want to throw in a little extra thing that what I said earlier about the show doesn't happen without Joe. The show also doesn't happen without you people. So thank you all for hanging out and being part of it. And
bye-bye.
And have
high five,
bye.
Nika-chan. High five.
Enjoy your nightmares
Bye-bye.
about OCD butt stuff.
Bye-bye.
Because it's coming. 2 weeks. OCD butt stuff. Let's get it going. Love you guys. Have a great week.